Welcome back to WRPL, the podcast where we talk about all the things we are watching, reading, playing, and listening to. My name's Ben.
And I'm Steve.
And to see how good today's episode, we're going to roll initiative.
A good old D20 to see how good we do. No modifiers, just straight rolls. All right, here I go. This is Steve, and I rolled. That's a 9, which is, the first 9 I've rolled because the past two times I've gotten nat 20s and you got nat 1s.
Which is insane.
I think I'm gonna guess yours is gonna be a 17.
17? Okay, all right. 13.
Okay.
Okay. So an all right show.
Yeah.
I'll be able to hold this thing together, and you'll be chugging along behind me.
Yeah.
It won't be our lowest rated episode. Well, today we're talking about a whole bunch of stuff, a bunch of little things that aren't quite done, some books, some new movies. We got a smattering of things, and one thing that we'll probably talk about next week once it's completely done, but we want to talk about it anyways. Spoilers for everything. Our main topic today is Barbarian, and kind of a weird topic for us. I mean, I was going to see this regardless, but
you are a fan of the horror.
To be the headliner of this episode, it's kind of an odd choice, but not a whole lot else out there. What was that? Legion? What is it called? The sword and sandal movie?
Oh, I think it's just called Medieval.
Medieval.
Yeah,
okay.
with Ben Foster.
Yeah. I'm not
Which
saying that.
I would watch, but I wouldn't pay for it.
No, and I would only watch if it was like, you invited me over, you had people over already, the plan was to watch this, and I got suckered into it.
I wouldn't throw a medieval party. I would be like, oh, we have nothing to do. Do you want to watch this? And you'd go, all right. And then we'd watch it, yeah.
So let's do the little stuff first.
Yep. Do you want to talk trailers?
Do trailers.
Okay, great.
So Disney had their Disney
D23 conference or whatever it is.
Disney Day. There was some premieres on Disney Plus, and they released a bunch of trailers for things that we may or may not give a shit about. We didn't watch them all because a lot of them I don't give a shit about.
Mm-hmm. Even the ones I do care about, I'm like partially excited and partially like I could still see it being crap.
Yeah,
because you can make a good trailer with crap.
Oh yeah, for sure. We've seen it a million times. So one super teaser, Little Mermaid.
That was the first one I wanted to bring up because. For anyone who doesn't know, Little Mermaid is one of Ben's favorite
It is my favorite
Disney
animated, not counting any sort of Pixar or anything like
classic
that.
2D.
Classic 2D animation. I love Little Mermaid, and I was dragged to it as a kid. Did not want to see it. Disney movies are for girls. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, I see Ariel, and now I've been in love with redheads forever. I blame that damn redheaded fish. This trailer was nothing.
Yeah, it was, it's a teaser trailer, and it's just her in the classic, look at my stuff, isn't it neat moment where she's in her Ariel's Cove or whatever you call it. And, yeah, it just didn't look good.
No, but we don't see the majesty, the magical kingdom. We don't see any of the Ursula stuff. There's sights to be seen, I bet.
Yeah.
But we don't see anything in this.
Yeah, because we don't get a lot of underwater worlds, with the exception of, like, Aquaman. And then we'll have Black Panther 2, we'll have Avatar 2. Yeah.
By the time this comes out.
The underwater worlds are coming. But...
yeah, Aquaman 2 as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So it could be interesting looking, but it's just with the track record of... Lion King, Jungle Book, Beauty and the Beast,
Aladdin.
They're all just, at best, fine.
Fine, yeah. Well, I hear Cinderella is really good. I hear that's the best of all of them.
Cinderella is my favorite.
Yeah.
I think costume design and Rob Stark is just very nice to look at. And so is Lily James too, I guess.
Sure.
But yeah, Cinderella's actually pretty decent.
Yeah, I'm just not a big Cinderella animated movie fan. There's not a whole lot to.
It surprised me that I did like it. But yeah, everything else has not really impressed me, and I wouldn't count Cruella in this because it's not like it's like adapted from.
No, it would be
a whole separate
101 Dalmatians with Glenn Close. That's the live action remakes for that.
But it looked glossy, and I'm sure the and the girl can clearly sing.
Yeah.
But the question is, like, will this movie add anything to the conversation? Probably not, and probably just be a nice little money grab for Disney. And then,
and isn't it Javier Bardem is playing King Triton?
I think so. Yeah.
I really wish they sometimes the internet gets things right, sometimes they get it wrong. But when they announced this, everyone said Terry Crews for King Triton. I'm like, damn, that's good. I think he would have been an excellent King Triton.
But I wonder if he would just look like the guy, the sea snake from House of the Dragon, because I mean Terry Crews is a bald man, but King Triton had like white hair.
He did have the white hair.
Yeah, it'd be kind of funny. It's just like, oh, it's the same guy. It's like, oh, they're both seafaring black men with white hair.
Yeah, I wonder if they would give him the white hair, or if they would just give him a grayed, black hair.
Yeah. Not that it matters.
No,
because we're not gonna see it.
Because like Javier Bardem, like he's Spanish. And Ariel is black. It really doesn't matter what race you cast them, but I just think...
my guess is all of her sisters, you know how they had different colored scales? They'll just be different colored girls.
I hope so.
Which I think would be way cooler.
Excellent. Yeah, you have your Chinese one, your Indian one. It'd be great. And I hope there is a redheaded white girl in there just to piss everyone off.
That's Schmeriel.
What other trailers did we have?
So the two I have... I figured we'd talk about because they'd probably be the two biggest trailers, where we have Marvel's Secret Invasion and Star Wars, Star Wars, Mandalorian season 3.
Yeah, there was another like Clone Wars looking thing.
Don't care.
Yeah, don't care about that.
I never saw the Clone Wars
show. It
show.
was like Tales of the Jedi.
All I saw was the thumbnail, and it looked like Nicolas Cage was a Jedi now or something.
Huh.
Like, I'll pull it up for you.
Yeah, I want to take a look at that. But while you're doing that, well, let's just talk about Mandalorian 3.
Okay.
Fine. It looks like if you told me most of these shots were from Season 1 and Season 2, I would have been like, oh, okay, yeah, probably. Because it all just looks the same. There's nothing that stood out in this trailer that made me go like, ooh.
Yeah, it's not... It's not like there was some big cool ship or anything. It was just like, look, there's a bunch of Mandalorians.
Bo-Katan's back. Yay.
But I mean, I do like looking at Mandalorians. Their
Sure.
armor is super cool, and I'm always down for like groups of warriors going in and like fighting a bunch of people.
Oh, I did like when they all like dropped out of the ship
and the jetpacks. Yeah. So I think like action scene wise, there could be some cool stuff.
Yeah.
But if you told me like, oh, all the best stuff you saw was from the same episode, it's like that's been my problem with The Mandalorian in general. It's like it's a show I enjoy for the most part, but I really like the first episode of both seasons, and then the middle parts I'm like about, and then the last episode, and like right when I'm about to give up on the show, the finale is like really fucking good.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that's my theory for season 3 is once again I'm gonna be like really into the first episode or two, not care about the middle part, and then I'm like, I don't know if I can do this again. And then season 3 will have like this fantastic episode, and
they got me again.
I put 3 seasons in. I'll give it another one and see what happens.
It can't go too much longer. I'll give it one more season.
Yeah. But I'm surprised that we see Baby Yoda or Grogu, back with him instantly, because he like goes off with Luke, and then it's just like,
well, he was back at the end of Book of Boba Fett.
Oh, well, I didn't see Book of Boba Fett, so okay, that would explain.
I mean, there's a whole Mandalorian episode in Book of Boba Fett. Like if there's 10 episodes, it's like episodes 8.
Right.
And it's just...
I mean, I did hear about that.
You need to go back and watch that before you start 3, because it's not the season, just that episode.
Just that one, okay.
Yeah, and then maybe fast forward through the last one to see how it ends up. Because, pretty much Luke is like, I could give you this lightsaber, or I could give you this chainmail made of Beskar. And what do you want to do, Grogu? And he takes the chainmail, and he wants to go back with what's his name? Not Mando, but...
Yeah. Is it Jin or something?
Jin Jardin, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that explains it.
Yeah.
Doesn't that look like Nicolas Cage?
Well, it went away. Hold on.
Right?
Yeah, it does. It's like a Nicolas Cage meets Christopher Lee. Especially the Christopher Lee look of his Clone Wars character.
Yeah. You know, that probably is like young Palpatine or something, right?
No, you mean young
Palpatine.
Dooku.
Dooku, yes.
Maybe it is. Oh, yeah.
I I didn't watch the trailer.
Yeah, I don't give a shit about Star Wars, Clone Wars, Rebels. It's like the ugliest looking animation I've ever seen.
Yeah, that's my biggest problem with it. It's like all I hear is that it's like the best Star Wars stuff, and I was like, because of the animation, I don't care. And I'm not like a prude of animation. Like I'll watch many different types, but if it just looks bad to me, it's kind of hard for me to forgive.
I don't know why they locked in on that. It's like they made one stupid movie and said, well, I guess we have to do it this way forever.
Forever, yeah. Anywho. So what'd you think of the Secret Invasion trailer?
It's fine. It's just Nick Fury walking around talking. Not a lot of scroll action. We do get like a laser beam from the sky, but it's more like a teleportation thing. I don't know. It's fine. It's a show that you kind of know exactly what's going to happen just from the premise. There are aliens hiding as humans, and you're not going to know which ones are it. And you're going to swear that this one, they're the good guy, and then in the last episode, it's going to turn out that they were one of the bad guys. And oh, what a heartbreak! What a tragedy! I don't think this show could be surprising because that's the hook. Someone is going to be a fake. So the whole time you're just waiting. Who is it? Who is it? And is it Nick Fury himself? And it's a huge long con the whole time. I don't know. I'm not that interested in this, but as a Marvel fanboy shill, I will watch it. But I'm more interested in watching Armor Wars than Secret Wars or Secret Invasion, whatever this one's called.
Secret Invasion.
Secret Invasion. Yep. Secret Wars is the Avengers movie, right?
Sure. Well, yeah, when I first watched the trailer, I was like, oh, I actually thought, like, that looks pretty good in comparison to, like, some of the other stuff. And I like, because you and I have both said, like, you know what, what's a Marvel world where it's, like, not about the superheroes? Like, give me the B team, which, like, kind of is what Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was, but you liked Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
I did.
I didn't bother watching it because I thought it looked like crap, and no one's talking about it other than you.
Yep.
So, and I'm sure there's a community of people who love Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Basics. Just kidding. No, but so when I first watched it, I was like, oh, okay, I actually kind of like this, and it could be like a fun sort of like spy thriller kind of thing. And I like that, you know, Martin Freeman's in it and Kobe's. It's just like all the kind of S.H.I.E.L.D. agent thing. But then I watched it again. I was like, you know what? Marvel's kind of sullied me so much recently. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I'll probably watch it only because I said I wouldn't watch She-Hulk, and here I am watching She-Hulk. But it's because my wife wanted to watch it.
Okay.
Now she's like in the Marvel universe, and so here I am sucking on the Disney teat for that sweet comic book juice, I guess. But I just don't care, and I can't wait to talk about She-Hulk.
Okay. And we have a couple. We got She-Hulk and Pinocchio, plus all these trailers. So kind of a Disney heavy day.
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously we don't know everybody who's in the show. Is there anyone that you think is a Skrull? Is Maria Hill Skrull? Has she been? I mean, I guess technically she is a Skrull from the end of Spider-Man Far From Home. Her and Nick Fury are. But has she always been a Skrull? Or is there a real Maria Hill? Or is Martin Freeman a Skrull and he's been biding his time? Because I can see they can really do anyone. That's like, Rhodey. Everyone said Rhodey has been a Skrull from the get-go. I mean, that'd be a funny joke of like, it was Terrence Howard, and now it's this person, and the Skrull just didn't get the look right.
Yeah, and Tony's such like a bad friend.
He doesn't even know. But it's sure you can go, Maria Hill was a Skrull the whole time. Or they just go, no, Maria Hill got chucked off a cliff whenever we wanted, and this Skrull took her place.
Right.
You don't have to keep that person alive, or they're on a ship. But do you have anyone off the top of your head that you go, yeah, it's probably them?
I mean, I guess Nick Fury would make the most sense to be a Skrull just because he's the guy who's interconnected everything. But, I mean, I don't know if I really care. If we're talking about, like, if there's, like, a major superhero or something, that could be... But they all have power, so, like, who else would it be unless it was, like, fucking Hawkeye? And that's why he's so good, because he's actually a fucking alien or something.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I don't really have any theories. I don't know enough about the Secret Invasion comic book. And obviously, they could change whatever they want because they do it all the time. But, no.
If there was one of those things of, like, oh, my God, Black Widow's back. How did she come back? I'm like, isn't that a story? Sure, then that person is probably a Skrull. But they haven't done anything like that.
Surprisingly.
Yeah, I mean, if Killmonger or something showed back and, the Atlanteans, they healed me when you threw my body in the ocean, and you could create some huge story that makes sense and then just go like, psych, he's a Skrull.
Yeah. Here's my problem is we've had this conversation before where you're just like, Steve, it's comic books. This is what they've been doing for generations.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that's right. And I think it works in comic books, kind of. But to like where you're watching a movie and you want the things you're seeing on screen to matter because it's like real people with real emotion or like, generated emotions, but believably real. And you're trying to get invested in the story, and just the story is like, well, the story doesn't really matter because there's the multiverse now. Yeah. And the story doesn't really matter because now there's Skrulls who can take place of anybody.
And this doesn't really matter because we have magic.
Yeah. It's like now Jane Foster's in Valhalla that I guess it does exist.
Yeah.
Which, can they come back from Valhalla? Maybe.
We'll
see.
Yeah.
I just... there's a little bit too much going on for me.
Okay.
So, we'll see. I think... I just want something to be good. Black Panther's the only thing I'm like kind of excited for, just because I thought that trailer was really well done. Yeah. But once again, that might just be a really well done trailer, and the movie is just kind of okay.
Yeah, first Black Panther I thought had a pretty good trailer, and that movie is just okay. I know for Marvel fans that's blasphemy. Black Panther is one of the top tier, but no, on an F to S tier rating, it's a C. Black Panther C.
I'd say it's over a C, but it didn't deserve to be.
Maybe the lowest B you could possibly have, but it's no A or S. No, not at all.
Well, we're not going to get into
Black Panther. That's another episode where we rank every Marvel property ever.
Because no one's ever done that.
No.
Yeah.
But see, the thing is, we're going to rewatch it all from the beginning in a marathon, shows and everything.
Live stream it all.
We're going to live stream the whole thing, and then we'll all say, they're all F tier. And then just hang our hats. And that's all the trailers we got, right?
I believe so.
Okay, let's do another short one. Let's do Primal.
Okay.
So Primal's almost done. We'll talk about how it wraps up next week, more likely. But the last 3 weeks, they've had like a mini series within it called.
This really could have just been a movie that they released in theaters.
Yeah, it really could have. But it was the Colossus parts 1 through 3, where Fang, Mira, and Spear are on a boat, and they decide to leave whatever lands they were at and just hit the sea again, try to get back home, and they get accosted by. It looks like the Chinese had ships like this. They had the biggest fleet, but they're more Egyptian people, which is another great thing about the show. Is like, it doesn't matter the time period. We have humans and dinosaurs living together, but then you cross the ocean and you have the Scots, you have strange barbarians and the Turkish and just all these other types of humans. But they get accosted by kind of an evil empire that goes from.
Yeah, it's very reminiscent of like Xerxes of 300 and everything.
And she steals Fang's babies to make everybody kind of do her bidding. And she also has another warrior, the Colossus. Doesn't ever really get any sort of name. I'm assuming that's who it is.
He does have a name. I forget what it is. I don't think they ever say it on the show, but on the IMDb it's like... It's something mundane,
the captive or the slave.
No, I think it's like an actual name, like R2 or something like that.
Oh, okay. But nobody talks, so...
Yeah. I don't know how he got that name, or if there was like, a little plaque on the back of his hut that you see or something. Maybe. I'll look it up real quick. Okay. But anyway.
Yeah, and so she takes Fang's eggs, gets her and Spear to fight for her, and they just go from land to land, just laying waste. And I love, there's a sequence where they just show the same battle 3 times, the same animation. It's just the enemies change, same roars at the same spot. It's
same slashing moments of swords. Yeah.
And so you just see how they just do this over and over and over again. And they even come across like peaceful people who just offer up, fish,
that was so sad.
Fish and apples. But it's like, no, if you don't kill these people, I'm going to kill your daughter. And the Colossus just goes nuts. It's a real heartbreaking story.
I think the ship is called the Colossus. I think
really?
Or the Colossus. That was my interpretation.
Oh, see, at
because
first
the ship is so massive, it's the Colossus.
That makes sense. See, at first I thought it was the guy coming back from the dead or making the deal with the demon, and he was the Colossus, and then it's like, oh, no, it's this guy that's as big as a dinosaur. That's the Colossus. But that makes more sense that even the boat's even bigger.
It says here on IMDb that his name is Kamau.
Oh, okay. Well, just like the Queen, I'm sure she has a name. That the writers do it for making the writing the story down, but we just never hear it.
Amal, maybe, or that might be the kid.
Maybe
or Ema. I don't know. It doesn't have a picture. Anyway, well, I just want to talk about season 2 as a whole.
In whole, yeah, okay.
But so yeah, I mean that's the big thing right now is this Colossus trilogy. But I want to talk about some things I like and some things I dislike.
Sure.
I did not love the first episode of this season.
You mentioned it.
Yeah. But not on the pod.
You did on the pod.
Oh, I did?
Yeah.
I thought I just talked. Okay, well then I'll skip that. Or for anyone who missed it, I didn't like that they built a raft and that he just has this huge dinosaur in this thing that doesn't seem like it could hold it.
Sure.
But that's fine. And I was wondering how is he gonna push this thing? Because there's no sail. And I was like, I hope the dinosaur puts its tail and uses it as a thing, a propeller or whatever. Yep. And then he did it. I was like, okay, nice.
Yep.
But my problem is you just put yourself out in the ocean and you there's no way to sail. You're just gonna let the waves take you.
Yep.
It's that's how you die. There's no way you're gonna survive this. And of course they fight some giant shark. And it was I think the same day we even watched Jaws when I watched
it. Oh, really?
Yeah. It's giant.
Yeah. They fight a big sea turtle, fight a big shark.
But she chokes out a sea turtle, which I thought was so silly. But, whatever. There's some beautiful animation in that. I like when people are on the ocean and the stars match the ocean. I think that's...
And then you just see the little ripples as they're going through.
I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. But that second episode...
The second episode is cute.
It's one of the most heartwarming, sweet stories that... who would have thought? I wanted to cry at how adorable Fang and her new boyfriend's little date night was. It was so precious.
Killing animals together, and they get drunk on berries, and they fall asleep next to each other.
Yeah, they had a night out. They got drunk. They hooked up, and then she met, or her new guy met her old guy, even though she's not involved with Spear that way, but it's this is my other man, and them kind of fighting with each other and getting in between it. I don't know. It's just so damn cute. Except for dinosaurs being impaled by spikes and tons of villagers dying and
because the villagers are the ones who kind of captured Spear, but at the same time they took care of him. And it seemed like Spear was willing to join their group, and then it's just once. I think the dinosaur is called Red. Once Red, is ultimately killed by Fang, they just both look so sad, and he's just I gotta go with my girl here. She's having a tough time. And it was really kind of nice because I like that they're kind of codependent on each other to get through some stuff. But an episode. Well, before I get to my favorite episode of the season, I gotta talk about the Red Mist episode, which is episode 4, where they get taken by the Scorpion gang, or the Scorpion Viking group, and Spear and Fang murder 100 people. He's helping Mira escape. They show up. They have the guys on bears, and then they murder the Spear murders those guys on the bears, and then as he's murdering them, all the villagers are coming out to kill Spear, and that's when Fang shows up, and then it's just those two killing 100+ people in this mass murder.
Killed the mom and the young boy.
Killed the mom and the young boy. Yeah, so they're the heroes, but they're and obviously these are people who own slaves, and so there's no good guys here really, but it's always kind of sad to see a little boy who's just defending his home get murdered. And it's like such a cool, it's like a huge action sequence, which is great. And there's some really cool visuals, especially like when the mist comes up and they're like running around in like the shadows and just like cutting people down. Like it's really, really effective. But this is where the show kind of drives me nuts too, is because how many arrows can this guy take?
All of them.
And it's just like he's constantly getting like slashed with like blades. Like his knuckles gets. Oh, that's a different episode. I'm sorry. Wait, no. Yeah, it's in the Colossus episode. But like spear. Like, I can buy Fang taking a bunch of damage because it's a big dinosaur with leathery skin. Yeah, I can get that. But, and I'm sure, and Spear is obviously very strong and tough and comes from a land that maybe he has thicker skin than other people because he has to fight dinosaurs too. But it's just absurd, the amount of people he kills and, like, isn't tired or, like, arrows he takes. Like, he's pulling, like, 14 arrows out of himself. Sure. And it's just like, just another day at the office for old Spear. I was like, there's got to be some... Like, I know
I need some realism in my dinosaur caveman story.
Let me finish. I was just about to say that. It's like, I realize it's a show that has dinosaurs and magic and demons and huge action sequences. Like, it's like I can buy that, but when you push the limits to a certain degree, you're just like. Now, if you tell me, oh, a wizard put a spell on Spear, so he's incapable of death, if we find that out down the line, okay. I can get behind that. But if he's just a dude who can just take daily spears to the chest and back and just kind of go like, ow, that hurt a little bit, it's a little absurd to me.
Sure. But hey, how is Batman swinging around Gotham City on that grappling hook? There's no way his shoulders could have held up all the yanks and drops and falls and stuff. There's no way that Batman could go out there and do that every night.
But at least you have the benefit of going like, oh, technology. He is wearing armor. He has trained for this. This is a guy who's just strong.
He's been training since birth. Every day is a battleground for Spear. There's no relaxation or anything. You're just out there to survive, and he's proven he's the strongest.
Sure. I just wish there was like I got some semblance that he can take actual damage. And I'm sure there's nerds out there who go like, well, if you remember in this episode, he was unconscious at this point. It's like, yeah, like that's just storytelling.
But there are times where like he just gets like backhanded, hits a wall, and he gets knocked out because it's convenient for the story because we need that. And then other times he's taking huge, hits to the face and no problem.
Right.
But once again, cartoon.
So fantastic episode, which becomes important because now you have the father and son going after them in other episodes and becomes a fire demon, all that stuff. Great, cool, I love it. It was also super absurd in a show where there's so many other... There was a zombie dinosaur, and I think that's less absurd than some of the stuff in this action sequence.
Sure.
But
so what's your favorite?
My favorite, which is actually the lowest rated in the entire series, is the Primal Theory, which is the set in England.
Yeah!
I love this episode.
Amazing episode.
I had one... I have one minor complaint, but I thought this episode was fantastic. I like that it diverged from the normal formula. There's no Spear and Fang.
Yeah.
It's just like
full of dialogue.
Full of dialogue. And it's just... like some British dudes in the 1800s teaming up to like fight a mass murdering man-eating dude who's very much like built like Spear. And the concept is, it's the whole concept of the show is just like humans and their animalistic nature and
everyone has a breaking point where you're
violence.
No longer part of society and you're a crazed madman.
And I love that they were using like modern technology and like it wasn't doing anything. And it wasn't until they were just like down to like their fists and like sticks where they were like truly their most like powerful and everything. And
was it Charles Darwin that was part of the group?
I don't know if they specifically said it.
I thought they were just like, Charles over here thinks that we're no better than monkeys.
There is a character named Charles, so yeah, that's probably what it was.
Sure.
Yeah, it was just like a really fun episode, and it was like a nice break from the formula because the show's really been like a monster of the week where here's these characters who like I was immediately invested in within 20 minutes. But my only complaint of the episode is it kind of felt like this is a 19-minute long, deep, introspective episode with great action to get to a punchline where he's just like, I told you, cut to black. I was like, it should have just ended. It's like they should have had a look and
he like raises his finger like he's about to say it, and then cut to black. Or
like the guy who ended up killing a serial killer should have just been like, I know what you're gonna say, or there could have been like,
don't say it.
Yeah, like you could have done something where it wasn't just like, haha, got you, like that. I was like, oh, well, you took this whole serious episode and you ended on like a dumb joke. And it's like, I didn't love that, but like the whole episode I thought was fantastic. I loved it, and I wouldn't mind seeing other episodes that diverge. I don't know if you need to after this episode. I think this episode kind of sold the point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought this episode was great. But I mean, by lowest rated episode, it's an 8. So like it's still a very high rated episode.
Same with like Breaking Bad. You look at all of them. Like the lowest rated one is The Fly, and I think it's like a 7.9. Like some shows are lucky to get even a 7.0.
I don't think any of the Lord of the Rings episodes currently are over 7.3. Yeah. So anyway, I've been really enjoying this season, and I like that they're doing some more long form storytelling, and it isn't just the monster or the dinosaur creature of the week. Yeah. And there is like consequences for their actions, and other characters coming back. So if this is the direction where the show's going, I'm into it.
Did you really like when the father of I think he's probably like the head tribesman of that episode, when him and his eldest son, they eventually die, and then he gets like brought into hell? Were you like jumping out of your pants? Because as I was watching those, I was like, man, I bet Steve's loving this stuff.
I mean, we don't really spend a ton of time there. I mean, I really like depictions of hell, and it was just sort of it was very typical like fiery place, which is fine. Yeah. And the demon, the devil lord, whatever you want to call him, was just caked in. It was just a silhouette essentially with red eyes. Like visually, very well done. But it's not like it was the most interesting interpretation of hell I've ever seen. But visually, very cool.
It's a direction I did not expect the show to ever go.
And I'm kind of glad we're talking about it before the finale, because it's like, I think my theory is, because once the baby dinosaurs hatch from the egg in the 3-parter.
How sad when one of them died.
Oh, I didn't expect to see like an actual...
a little fetus. I didn't expect to see eggs coming out of a cartoon dinosaur's vagina either.
When I was watching this, I was like, oh, Ben's going to have a problem with this.
I was like, they're going to show it because they haven't shied away from anything, and it would be weird if they just show her squint and then plop, one comes out. From behind her leg.
We can show decapitations, it's horrible violence, but we can't show the miracle of childbirth.
So I was very surprised surprised and not surprised.
Because I don't think I've ever seen a cartoon birth.
No.
And like, well,
the Big Mouth spinoff, Human Resources. There was one in the first episode.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Touche.
But they do that on purpose to be shocking.
Yeah.
Whereas this is like, no, this is just an animal giving birth to eggs. But when that egg cracked and you saw the little fetus, I was heartbroken. I was so sad. Every time you hear Fang roar in fear or anger about her kids, like I feel it in my heart. I understand that is it's weird to say that character.
One of my favorite performances this year is a dinosaur.
Yeah.
An animated dinosaur.
But you get every little growl and every little you get it.
Yeah, a full character. So yeah, when those babies like hatched and like now they're back together and we don't know what's gonna happen in the finale, it's like how, like, because Fang's not gonna leave them, and it's like it can't be every episode where it's just like these two trying to like co-parent these dinosaurs and like fight off. I mean, there could be episodes like that might be kind of fun, but like I think my theory is that Spear does get killed by the demon. Spear is now in some sort of afterlife thing where maybe he has to fight, and then like there's going to be a time jump thing where like Fang is raising the kids, and then those kids grow up, and then by the end of next season, or maybe after a couple episodes, whatever it is, Spear and Fang like
are reunited in hell.
Not necessarily reunited in hell, but like we've seen people go to hell and then come back.
Sure.
I could see Spear dying to save those kids, going to either hell or because I mean, after all the people he's killed, he should probably go to hell.
Yeah, probably.
Even if it was in self-defense. Because he also killed a bunch of people who like never did him any wrong. He just happened to go like, well, I gotta team up with this dinosaur to protect you.
Yeah, I got to get through, and you're standing there. Sorry, you're dead.
Yeah. So if he becomes some sort of like warrior for the devil or something, then I could see that. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, I think it'd be a finale that people wouldn't see coming, and then it could be a time jump where like now we don't have to worry about the two kids because they've grown up and gone off on their own or whatever. Or maybe now that's just because I don't want to. I can't imagine a show where it's like Spear teaming up with 3 T-Rexes.
Sure,
because that'd just be a lot.
When the guy was gonna cut off Fang's head, I was like, oh shit, they're actually gonna kill Fang right here. And then Spear and Mira are obligated, like we have to do this. And like, it would not surprise me if they kill off Fang, even though she's a fan favorite for sure. But 2 cute baby T-Rexes, that's pretty great. And we could do a time jump and get them bigger as well.
Yeah, you could do a time jump and it's like Mira and maybe I don't necessarily need Spear and Mira to get together, but I could just see them being cohabitated friends or whatever, and then those 2 dinosaurs grow up and now they're
each are Dino Riders.
Dino Riders, yeah.
Well,
so I could see that being the direction it goes.
Yeah.
So I think
instead of Spear sacrificing himself for the kids, Fang would definitely sacrifice herself for the kids.
Yeah.
You
might be onto something.
I did see a picture, and it may be from the last episode. It may be a fan thing. I won't say it unless you want to hear it. And it shows 2 characters, and it's very different. And I kind of have an idea of maybe what's going to happen. So
you can tell me. I'm interested now. You sold me. We can just cut around all this.
Like Mira, all of her hair is grown out, and she has like long black hair. And then Spear has like, I can't remember if it was a helmet or like a nose piercing, but he has like a big tusk thing, and like he's wearing kind of armor. So I think like they have not necessarily evolved, but they've kind of grown into a more like they can live in a society, or they may actually be ruling people now.
Okay.
I thought maybe after seeing that and then seeing this last episode, I thought they were going to kill so many people on the ship that then everybody would drop their stuff and then they would run that ship. And then wherever they get to next, they would just hop off.
Yeah, because I imagine Mira would want to get back to her people or whatever. But
maybe too far now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I imagine Spear will just go wherever Mira would want to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if they become like king and queen of like a nation, and then just them on a throne with Fang behind them like roaring or something, would be like a really cool image to end on.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone's like a Genghis Khan, Spear can prove like I'm the strongest warrior, I'm in charge.
Yeah, but I just don't see him like conquering nations
no,
or anything like
no,
that. Like it would just be purely defensive. But
sure.
I don't know. Hopefully, yeah. And what if he's just like raising T-Rexes and it's just like he's just the leader of a whole army of dinosaur riders?
Yeah.
Like that could be cool. I don't know. I would love to see a giant battle of just charging dinosaurs.
Yeah,
I love a good like give me the ride of the Rohirrim, but it's the ride of the Jurassic period. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I like that.
Well, we'll see.
We need to move on. We're at 40 minutes and we talked about 2 topics. Okay.
I'll be quick with the other stuff.
Yeah, same with me. Like, What We Do in the Shadows came to season 4 finale. Amazing show. If you don't watch it, you're dumb. I know I was talking a lot of shit on Taika Waititi. This is like his last thing that I really love and respect of his, but I don't think he even really writes on it anymore. And like season 1 and 2, main showrunner, then now he's busy, so he puts it off to other people, and whoever is taking care of it is doing an excellent job. Fantastic season once again. Amazing characters. No one's better than fucking Laszlo. He Matt Berry, just speak at me all day long. I don't care what you're saying, and it's amazing. Just him saying like New York City is so funny. He's just saying the name of a city, and it's so funny. And all the stuff with Colin Robinson being a little kid and growing up really fast is all really good. Guillermo actually has like a bigger arc, and by the end of the season, they're finally doing a thing where it's like, I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but like, oh my God, of course, this is what you do, you idiot. You could have done this years ago, but you haven't. And so I'm glad they're finally getting to a certain point. So season 5 should be fantastic.
Great.
And that's it. Yeah, that's all I got to say about What We Do in the Shadows.
I'll say I read 2 books. Well, I read one book and listen to an audiobook. So I did listen to something this week.
All right.
So I mentioned last week that I started The Hobbit on audiobook that I found on Spotify. That was just this free thing that some fans, I guess, put together. And it was pretty, and actually it made me appreciate, because it's been years since I've read it, it made me appreciate Peter Jackson's The Hobbit more, actually. Yeah, because the book is an excellent book. It's a classic, but it is a young adult children's book, essentially. But it's just a book where it's just like, okay, once after the chapter of just like the adventure's going to start, it's just, oh, they're facing this thing. Then the next chapter, they face another thing. And then they face another thing and another thing and another thing. And like, there's chapters that are great, like his riddles with Smeagol and the Smaug stuff. And there's some great things in there. But it's just event after event. There's no like, it's essentially all action throughout. And so like the pacing is just like, there's no real story here. And there's only really like 3 characters. It's Bilbo, Thorin, and Gandalf, and maybe a little bit of Balin. Because like all the other dwarves get like a line here or there, but they're not characters at all.
That's my problem with the movie. And I know it's like you want to be faithful to the book and adapt it properly, but you have too many you have too many dwarves. They're not necessary. And I think if you wanted to make a more interesting story, you pare that down to 5 dwarves. You have your Thorin, you get your Fili, Kili, your Balin, and then an old one. And then cut the rest.
Balin is the old one.
Oh, wait, who's the bald one?
That's Dwalin.
Okay, you do a Balin, Dwalin, Fili, Kili, and then Thorin. So you have a little variety of everybody. You get rid of Fatty, you get rid of Starbeard, you get rid of stupid ugly one with the big nose. Like they're all terrible. They're not interesting. So you cut that down, you'd make a much tighter story. But obviously, if you cut out dwarves from The Hobbit, people would flip shit.
Yeah. In the Hobbit books, they're basically differentiated by this dwarf wears this color. Yeah. This dwarf wears this color. And so you don't really get a sense of who, and then there's the fat one. It's not like they don't do descriptive things like, oh, this one has an axe in its head, this one has a star beard. Like Peter Jackson actually made them all visually different and interesting looking, and he gave them all a little bit something more to work with because he did expand the storyline. Yeah. And then it's not until like essentially the last chapter where you find out, because Gandalf is constantly going like, oh, I have to go now, I'll see you down the road, and then he like disappears and then comes back when like they need him in this like time of crisis. And then it is until the very end of the book where, you know, Bilbo's just like having conversation with him, and he's just like, oh, I had to deal with a necromancer in the whatever lands. It's like, well,
that stuff is all in the book? Him saying like, I had to go off and fight a necromancer?
Well, it's like the narrator going like, Gandalf dealt with a necromancer in the whatever lands, and like it's kind of just like one line, and that's it. But you like Gandalf never explains where he went, and like never like it's never explained throughout the majority of the story. So like having all that stuff in the Hobbit movies because it's like he just disappeared and just shows up whenever you need him and be like, oh, he's the Eagles of this movie.
Yeah.
And the Eagles do show up, but it's just so it's cool seeing Gandalf do Gandalf stuff and facing orcs and the necromancer, and like because that's all important stuff that leads into Lord of the Rings. Yeah. So
none of that bothered me in the Hobbit. Yeah, all that stuff is
no, it didn't bother me. My problem with I am a defender of the Hobbit. I like those movies. I think they have good merit to them, but there shouldn't have been 3 of them.
No, just make 1 4-hour movie.
4 hours is a lot. I mean, I would have preferred
2 movies
or. I would have been okay with 3, but they would have been an hour and 45 apiece.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's, I think, if you're going to do 3, you can still make all that money, but it could have been condensed, and then you could easily watch it within a day.
Yeah, and then you could have more showings per day, per theater.
Yeah. So, yeah, like, talking trash on the Hobbit movie, that's not the point here, but my point is that, like, Peter Jackson took stuff that was there and really did make a more interesting movie because, like, well, I'd want to know what Gandalf... Like, I want to see Gandalf fight the necromancer. I don't want, like, this little bit of information because, like, you don't really get you get a little bit of the Battle of the Five Armies, but then Bilbo gets knocked out and then the battle's just over. He doesn't see the end of it. So, like, having, like, a villain... like Azog, the Defiler, something that Thorin has like a connection to. Like it all makes sense. So it's like you can not like those movies because like it doesn't look as crisp. It's too CGI heavy. There's some stupid action like Legolas running up those bricks and stuff. Like there's
it's the barrel.
I 100% agree. There's some bad stuff in it and some direction that I don't love. But ultimately, like I think that there is merit to The Hobbit, and him making them longer and expanding that world was important. Because if you just did chapter, you'd be like, this movie's dog shit.
Yeah.
Because nothing makes sense, and there'd be no time to develop Biffer, Bofer, and Bomber, and Oin and Gloin. It's like, yeah, they don't get a ton of screen time, but at least there's something there.
Sure.
But
it's I get, let's expand it to fill out the world. Let's tell that Gandalf story. Let's give Thorin a villain. All that's fine. But when you fill it with the barrels going down the river, which I know they do, but like orcs are attacking them and they're bounding out, and it just seems like a theme park ride. Or having to let's coat the dragon in gold. That will stop him. Got to get the fires going. All that stuff is really bad. And then Five Armies is just like terrible. There's like nothing to it, I think, worthy. I like those worm monsters, but everything else.
Yeah, I thought those were made up for the movie. There is a worm monster mentioned. I don't think it's mentioned at the Battle of Five Armies. I could be wrong, but there is a line of
same as the sea worm that we saw in.
Yeah. So it was like, oh, okay, there is precedent to that, because I didn't remember them from reading. Because when I saw the movies, I hadn't read The Hobbit in years, and I saw the movies. So anyway, my point is, Hobbit's great, but the book is missing some stuff, and then the movies are not so great, but everything they added, other than the technical aspects of it, is all great. Like the Hobbit movies, I'm glad they exist, and I enjoy watching them, but it's they couldn't find a happy medium between book and. I'd just be interested to see, like, if you took those movies and condensed them to an hour 45, what those movies would be.
Yeah, I always said I can't wait till I find a accurate book cut, because I would love to watch that. But I haven't wanted to like pull the trigger to rewatch The Hobbit, because I have the extended editions, but I've never seen them. How are the extended editions compared to the theatrical? Do they add much, or is it like, oh my god, it's even more bloated?
The Battle of Five Armies is even more bloated.
But does it make it better? Because like Return of the King, theatrical is definitely the worst one. It feels cut up. But Return of the King extended is amazing. Like you really see where they polish some things.
Yeah, I think it's been a while, but the extended editions of 1 and 2 aren't bad. And 2 is my favorite. Desolation of Smaug, I think, is the best one of the three. But from what I remember of the extended edition, it's just like the Battle of Five Armies just goes on like way too long, and there's just way too much silly stuff. There's a chase sequence with like them on chariots and goats like riding on this like ice thing, and it's like they cut all that and just like cut to them like Thorin and Fili and Kili at the top of the ice mountain where they fight Azog and stuff. Like it's just a lot more action sequences in the third one, and it doesn't add anything else to the plot from what I remember, or like makes character choices make more sense. So I only watched the extended editions of The Lord of the Rings, but maybe getting the extended editions of The Hobbit wasn't the best choice. But at the same time, I'm also happy to be in that world longer than I need to be, even if it is to the detriment of the story, I guess. Anywho.
And we gotta, we can't complain about Martin Freeman is just a great Bilbo.
Oh, the best.
If you had a terrible Bilbo, then those movies can probably be completely written off. But because he's so good, I think it covers a lot of its imperfections.
Yeah. And the other book I read was book 2. I talked about it on the podcast. I read, this is from the Live Ship Traders trilogy, The Realm of the Elderlings. It's about pirate ships, or sail ships, whatever you call them.
Sailors?
No. We'll just say pirate ships, but it's not necessarily all about pirates.
It's like trade and stuff like that.
Yeah, imagine Pirates of the Caribbean, but the mastheads are alive. And so the ships are like a living thing, essentially.
Okay, I remember
made from magical wood. And it took me a long time to read this book, not because I wasn't enjoying it, just for whatever reason I just couldn't. Like I was reading like a chapter and then pausing for 3 days, reading another chapter. Yeah. It took me longer than it should have. Because usually I try and finish a book a month, but really enjoyed it, really good. You find out, spoiler alert for if you guys want to read, but like the wood is actually made from dragons, and there's a whole subplot of which is the stuff I don't like is that you have these sea serpents that are like have their own separate like mini chapters where they're talking to each other and like we got to bring back the memories because we're all just turning into like blind animals. And so there's some serpents that like are just think they're serpents, and there's some serpents that are like, we used to be something but I can't remember, we need to find the one who remembers. And like we're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like I'm reading tons of pages about these like sea serpents that are talking to each other and like have their own culture or whatever, but I like don't care about the story. But they're essentially, so sea serpents, yes, if I remember correctly, like, these sea serpents can like go to land, lay eggs. Those eggs eventually become hatchlings that then go out and then become dragons. So they're like the precursor to dragons. And if we don't get our memories back from the one who remembers, we'll never become dragons and we'll just become sea serpents forever. And so like all that's happening, and it's like if they touch a ship, the ship remembers who those sea serpents were when they were dragons, because the ships also hold memories, because the ships are made from dragons essentially, or at least like the...
How are they made? If they're wood, how are they made from dragons?
So there's another subplot where there's a dragon and this large log, and it's like a log that they make ships out of. Mm-hmm. But basically the log that they make ships out of is essentially like kind of like a dormant, essentially like an egg. It's not really an egg, but it's
like a fossil, maybe.
Somehow, like dragons have been fossilized, and they just assume it was wood and didn't know that there was dragons inside. But there's one that's like, "Hey, I'm a dragon. I'm trapped in here, and like you need to get me out." And the guy's like, "No, I'm not going to do that. You're just going to like murder people or whatever." If I do
I'm going to turn you into a boat.
But then at the end of this book, the dragon is released and like kind of hatches from this piece of wood and then takes off and all that stuff. And I don't know if that dragon is a villain or not. It speaks very villainously. But anyway, weirdness aside, I really enjoyed the book. There's a pirate captain who wants to become king of the Pirate Isles. His name's Kenneth. He's one of my favorite characters. I love him. He's such an interesting, cool anti-hero. And very well-written dialogue. Robin Hobb is the author. I think no one does fantasy characters better than her. Like they feel like real people, and I'm interested in all of them. There's characters in the first book. There's like a Sansa kind of character. Her name's Malta, who's just like, oh, I want to wear pretty dresses, and she's always like really like snot nosed, and you're like, I hate her. She's such a brat. But by the end of book 2, she's like my favorite character. Yeah. She's great because she's finally like growing up and coming in her own. She's losing her family has like lost her fortune, and there's like now war going on, and she's just like, she has no interest in like dealing with anyone's shit, and she's like kind of like becoming her own like real person. Like that transition has been fantastic. Like everyone else kind of stays the same, and it's like, oh well, you got this relationship over here of like the main character. It's like, will she get with this guy or this guy, and what's gonna happen with like the grandmother or whatever. But like her character has been a total 180. Like it's been a lot of fun. So I'm reading the 3rd book now. We'll see how it turns out. I'm not liking as much as The Assassin's Apprentice and the Farseer trilogy, which I talked about, I think, in our very first episode. Yeah. But it's from that same author, and I'm still enjoying it, and I really enjoyed the characters, and that's what's really selling me, because some of this like sea serpent dragon shit I like don't really care about.
Yeah, saying the it's not the mast. What's
the masthead? Yeah, so
it is the masthead.
Yeah,
okay.
they've carved like a person from the waist up in the front of the ship. And that has taken on a life of its own, and
that's a cool idea.
Yeah, it's a fully functioning character, and like and you've met a couple different ships, and they're all of vastly different personalities, and they're all very interesting to talk to. Like it's weird that like a ship is a person and a character who has like thoughts and feelings and like makes jokes and like says like, oh, that person sucks, but this person's cool. It's really really fun.
Yeah, I like that idea, but then it's like, oh, but actually it's made from dragons, and dragons are also wood or something? Oh, that sounds stupid. So
yeah, dragons aren't wood, but I really haven't figured out like how the dragon is encased in this log, but if you cut the log, it's not like it just bleeds black goo, and you're just like, oh, I wonder what this is.
It's or like the spirit of the dragon is in the wood. I don't know, whatever.
It's magic shit, so ultimately I guess it doesn't really matter. But if you like fantasy and you want sort of a pirate-themed fantasy adventure, the Liveship Trader trilogy so far is pretty good.
And the first book is called Mad Ship? Or
the first book is called Ship of Magic. The second book is The Mad Ship. And third book is called Ship of Destiny, which I'm reading right now. Yep.
Cool.
And that's it, except for She-Hulk.
That's it for you. Oh, you don't want to talk about Little Nightmares?
And I played Little Nightmares. We don't have to talk about it because you mentioned it on the podcast before. I played it. Not as scary as I wanted to be. Not as long as I wanted to be. Not as challenging as I wanted to be. Just C- game.
Okay.
Like, I think I played it for like 5 hours. I was interested in the story. Visually, I think it's very interesting looking. I think the long-armed man is kind of like my favorite villain in it. I don't understand the story all that well because it's one of those games like Inside or Limbo, where you're just like it's kind of a side-scrolling adventure where you like solve minor puzzles to get to the end. But it's like you're a little girl, but you're so tiny, like you're the size of a mouse.
Yeah.
But that doesn't really explain. And then like there's a
are you a normal-sized person in a big world, or are you a small person in a normal-sized world?
Yeah, on this like subterranean vessel that I guess feeds children to these fat people.
Yeah.
Run by this geisha woman who like has magical powers, and then you defeat her in a stupid way, and then you absorb her powers. Spoiler alert! Sorry, but we always say at the beginning. Spoilers. It's like, and then you defeat, and then the game's just kind of like over. Also, there's like little gnomes running around.
Yeah.
That like if you hug them, they show up at the end of the game, which is like great, but like
cool. I mean,
what does that
it's
matter?
like when you get one, you unlock concept art.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
So, but then you eat one of them.
Yeah.
Which I could see this being an interesting, like stop motion movie in the vein of Coraline, something like that.
Yeah, it's very Tim Burton-esque kind of game.
You know, you take her, you team her up with those little things, and give her some dialogue of what am I doing? Got to get out of here, and you just make a quick little movie. I think that's good, and I had fun playing it, but it's maybe a little too weird to have like a great story.
Yeah, I did go on Wikipedia just like so I could try and understand better. And it's like, okay, I guess this makes sense, but by the end you're just like, oh, well, what the fuck was all that about?
Yeah.
And then I know there's a sequel, or technically it's a prequel.
Yeah.
Little Nightmares 2, which maybe explains a little bit more. But in terms of like a first game, other than like the visual appeal of it and the simplistic gameplay, which is kind of nice that I don't have to worry about like triggers and a bunch of all that stuff.
Dodge
it's just like,
rolls.
Yeah, it's just like jump is it.
Yeah.
Jump and grab. So that was nice. But in terms of like a story, I'm like, I wish this was scarier or
I mean,
just
I found
more,
like
I could follow it more. Like, what is this world?
The cook was kind of scary because they would like hear you, they'd see you, and then they would start charging, and the sounds they made were just awful. But did you ever have a problem where you'd like run into a room and you go, where do I go? And then it's like, oh, I'm supposed to go into that box, but I couldn't quite tell because there was a shadow. Like, did you ever run into issues like that? 'Cause sometimes I would just run blind into a situation and just be like, I don't know where I'm going. I hope I figure it out on the way. And then it takes a couple of tries and like, oh, I climbed the bookshelf.
Yeah. No, there was a couple parts that I like had trouble with, but it was more like I couldn't grab onto something in time as the thing's chasing me or whatever. The thing I had the most problem with was actually early on with the long arm man, where you have to like sneak by him for the first time.
Oh, yeah?
And it's just like, because if you move too fast in the wood, he'll grab you. But I didn't realize that. So like I was like, is there something? Like I just couldn't figure out. I couldn't even make it like 2 feet without this guy grabbing me. I was like, what am I doing?
You gotta
wrong?
kind of like lead him left, don't you? And then run past him?
Well, it's I don't remember. It was just, I think you have to like walk slow, but he does like kind of make the rounds, and when he goes off screen you just like move really really slow. I was like, oh. And then
he can't see, but he could hear, so you gotta creep.
Yeah, so I didn't realize it was like a creeping kind of thing. But then also I think you had to like throw something to distract. I don't know, it was a whole thing. But ultimately I had an enjoyable experience with it. It's just I wish I cared about it when it was over.
Sure.
And
you know what killed me the most, and I feel real dumb? Those fucking snakes at the beginning. I'm like trying to get around them, and they like, no matter what, they kept getting me. Whether I'd creep, run, jump, it seemed like they got me all the time. And I had to redo that snake thing a bunch, and it's like, this is way too early in the game for me to be dying.
Yeah.
And then there's a huge chunk where I was just blazing through.
Right,
those damn snakes.
Yeah, no, I died like 2 or 3 times with the snakes. I never found them to be like a big issue, but C- if we're rating games.
All right.
I'd say, don't buy it.
Yeah,
but
I'm glad it was a free game.
Yeah. But if you could play it for free or for like $5 maybe, it'd be worth your time. It'll take you 5 hours or less to beat. And, it's at least interesting.
Cool. Before we get to like, I think we have like kind of 4 main topics. We have Barbarian, and then we have our weekly Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones stuff, and then She-Hulk is kind of a big thing. I want to talk about Pinocchio real quick.
Okay.
So, our latest live action Disney remake is Pinocchio, starring Tom Hanks as Geppetto and
Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Jiminy Cricket.
Yeah, which
I only know because I looked up. I didn't even know this movie came out. Like I saw the trailer like 3 days ago, and then I was like, "Oh, that must be coming out in like 2 months." Came out yesterday or whatever it was.
If I didn't look it up, I would have never known that was Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Right, yeah, exactly.
That's really he did a great job there. Keegan-Michael Key is in it, and Luke Evans is in it, and they're all like real small roles.
Yeah.
Nobody's really in it all that much. This movie's bad, like real bad. I gave it an F because I really don't see much of any quality or any redeeming qualities for it. If you like Pinocchio and you like that story, just watch the original. They don't add enough to make this different, and they stay a little too close to the original, which is a problem because it's not really a story. It's kind of like the anthology tales of Pinocchio. So you have his birth and dancing around with dad, and then he gets sent to school. He never asked to go to school. His dad just makes him go to school, and that's what starts off this whole adventure. If he just would have maybe walked his son to school instead of letting a weird puppet thing out on the street and just assume everybody's going to be okay with it, because he gets kicked out of school immediately. And then it's three major things that happen. He gets taken by like a performance traveling circus thing, has to perform, escapes that, goes to the fantasy island, I can't remember which one it's called, where all the bad kids get turned into donkeys and shipped away. That happens, and then that's done. And then he gets trapped in a whale and has to get out with Geppetto, and then that's done. These three things don't really connect to each other, and I think they easily could have been. Like, you send him to school, and everybody's like making fun of how he looks, and maybe starts acting out, and that would show him being a bad boy and why going to the fantasy land would make him turn into a donkey. Or you have the kids talking about like, oh, let's go check out the puppet show down there, and maybe we'll find Pinocchio's a girlfriend, make jokes like that. And then when he sees the puppet show, goes like, oh wow, I either see them as like captives and I gotta help them, or oh my god, I can do that even without the help of the strings, and I could be a star. And maybe he becomes really popular and he's sold to the island of misfit boys and is a performer there. And because of the kidnappers, maybe they do kidnap him and he falls off the cart into the ocean, or he gets put on an ocean liner and it sinks, and then that's how the whale gets introduced to it. Like, you could connect these stories simply, but they don't really, except for, oh, Pinocchio needs to learn courage and honesty and bravery or something like that, and that will make him turn into a real boy. And I think they could have also focused on that. Like, he wants to be a real boy because his dad says he's not a real boy, and that's what he wanted. Well, is that good for Pinocchio? Accepting yourself for who you are and not having to try to change. Like, there's a lot of things they can do to update this, not to be more modern, but to actually just be a story. And I've never liked the Pinocchio story because he's an ugly looking character, and it just jumps from thing to thing. And them turning into donkeys in the animated one was really scary when I was a kid, and being inside a whale, that's really scary. But it's just so disjointed. And you, like, okay, Jiminy Cricket, he's supposed to be Pinocchio's conscience. He's supposed to stick with him. But he's not with him the whole movie. He gets, like, trapped under a jar, and he's constantly chasing down Pinocchio, but he's never there to go, like, I don't know, maybe we shouldn't do this. There's no point in having Jiminy Cricket here. He's supposed to have a role, and he doesn't do it. And then by the end, it's like he just kind of shows up, and everything's hunky-dory and happily ever after. And what's the point? If he was just the narrator he was like his, I know you don't want to say like fairy godmother because there's already a blue fairy in it, but like he's the person that's supposed to look over. Maybe the fairy puts him in charge of, you have to make sure things go right because he's just a weird puppet thing. He's not a real person, and he's following him the whole time and has to be just an observer. That'd be fine, but he doesn't. He's just like 10 miles behind Pinocchio the whole movie.
Yeah. I know this isn't part of the Pinocchio story or lore probably, but you know what you do, and it's real tacky, and this is just like low hanging fruit. But you have Jiminy Cricket be his angel on his shoulder, and then you have a termite be the devil on his shoulder, and then it's like you have the two battling bugs, and like, oh, there's one that literally eats away at you because he's a wooden boy. And then it's like, no, I'm going to listen to Jiminy because he's looking out for my best interest. And that's how you like, it's a story about a boy who's like struggling to find himself and decide what's right and all of that. And like the struggle of every young boy is, you know, how to become your own person and be like, find your own morals and values and all that stuff. And I just think like the idea of a termite being, you know, attached to a wooden boy is kind of funny. So that's my soft pitch. That is funny.
So a few other things. Everybody looks at Pinocchio like, wow, what a freak. You're a living puppet. That's crazy. But Keegan-Michael Key's character is an anthropomorphic fox, and he has an anthropomorphic cat that doesn't speak. He's like a mute, and he's wearing like beggar's clothes and just he's a con man.
Right.
But nobody ever goes like, oh my God, there's a talking fox in our street. They look at the puppet and go, wow, that's crazy. But these two living animal people, that's okay?
Yeah. That's one of my least favorite tropes in movies, where you have something that shouldn't exist in your world and everyone's just like kind of okay with it. Like the most you get is like people, like there's a shot of like, let's say it's something that's knee high, and then you just have the camera at knee high, and then it's like looking up at people, and they're just kind of like looking down and like, oh, that's weird. But they're like going about their day like off to work. It's like I've never seen I've never seen that before. It's like the
Alvin and the Chipmunks. Oh, that's crazy, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed Paddington, but the idea of like there's just a bear hanging out at the train station, they're like, we better go talk to it. It's like no one seems to have a problem with the talking bear, and it's just like, oh, that's just a thing, I guess, in this world. But you never see them run into other talking bears.
Sure, I think Paddington, it doesn't better. Like everybody's accepting of this one thing, and that's the only thing. But they're unaccepting of Pinocchio. But the fox is fine. Okay, and you can go to this place and children can turn into donkeys, and that's totally normal. Nobody says anything about that.
Yeah, that's that's one of my favorite things about the movie Ted is when he comes to life, and her parents, Mark Wahlberg's parents freak out, and then it cuts to like the television, and like he went on like Letterman and all that stuff, and like, look what Jesus did, look what Jesus like, everyone knows. And so it's like it's a year later, so everyone has known of this thing's existence, because like otherwise every time that stuffed animal that's walking and talking, like it'd be a big freaking deal, but he was a celebrity in the 80s or whatever. Like I like that they use that to the advantage.
They handle
but
that right.
There's other like kids movies where they just like, oh yep, talking dogs exist, deal with it. Okay, and they have jobs or whatever.
So, and I guess my last complaint would be he's kind of ugly looking. They don't do anything special to redesign Pinocchio. He looks exactly like his 2D animation form, which I guess is fine, but the cat Figaro and what's the fish's name, Cleo or something, they don't look exactly like they did in the original.
Just worried about the whole Sonic thing. It's like if we change him too much, it's like
sure, but like even his eyes are just painted on, but they can still blink, so it's the paint like moving up and down, and so his eyelids are just the same wood that is his forehead and his cheek, and the paint just moves, and it just looks really ugly. If it was sunken in a little bit, just have a little definition of this is where your eye sockets would be, but it's ugly. It's not an attractive movie. And Monstroso, the whale at the end, he's just a whale before. Now he's a freaking sharktopus. He's a whale with tentacles and like weird fins that kind of look almost like wings. But he's got like 6 or 8 tentacles behind him. He's a sharktopus now, and inside the whale is kind of cool looking, but you're not there very long.
Right.
And you just talking about like being on a raft with the dinosaur tail pushing along. Pinocchio gets on it and he like kicks his legs real fast and pushes the raft, but he's just a marionette. He's not a machine. He just his knees are just like little wooden dowels that move. Why does he have the power to like turn into Dash from The Incredibles and powerboat them all the way to safety?
It would have been funnier if he was just in a tiny boat and he took his legs off and like used them as
oars. That's funny. Or it's like he has to float on his back and everyone's like, hang on to Pinocchio. He's made of balsa wood and he floats something. But no, he turns into Dash from The Incredibles and motorboats them all the way out.
Yeah, I just wish like the name Robert Zemeckis meant
something.
Yeah.
This dude made Forrest Gump and Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Everything else, like I don't care about Polar Express or anything that he's done. He's made
Back to the Future, right?
Yeah, and that. He's made 3 fantastic movies that are classics, and everything else is just like he made The Witches, the remake of The Witches, not too long ago. That's a bad movie. You look up his IMDb, his last like 15 things have all been bad. I think his last great one was Forrest Gump.
Yeah. He did the Uncanny Valley Beowulf movie, which like I remember at the time I kind of liked Beowulf.
It has its moments.
It has its moments, but the animation doesn't hold up by any means.
And Polar Express doesn't. The Christmas Carol one with Jim Carrey doesn't.
Yeah, he went full into this sort of like I'm just gonna do sort of these super CG weird movies.
Yeah.
It's all owned by Disney. It's like
this, and I think it was Chris Stuckman that was talking about it. Like, well, we need to do another live action remake of something. Well, what's next on the list? Pinocchio? Sure, that's easy enough. Who wants it? Hey, Robert, you doing anything? No, not really. Cool, you got Pinocchio.
Here's $20 million.
Yeah,
to make
just
this.
knock it out real quick.
Yeah. I mean, I wish Robert Zemeckis would have like a George Miller Rebirth Mad Max movie, something. Robert Zemeckis, I would love to see him get like his own Fury Road or
that would be
anything.
Cool. Yeah. Do you have a passion project, or is this disgusting animation like your thing?
Yeah. Pass.
Skip.
Yep. Well, I'm glad I won't watch it unless my wife really wants to. And then
don't. I think even kids would be bored with it. It's not interesting. So let's move from one Disney program to another.
Okay.
We're going to talk She-Hulk. I haven't really talked about it all that much on this because I know you didn't give a shit, and I was just going to wait till the end. But we got the first 4 of 9 episodes, I think, is the season. She-Hulk, Steve, what you thinking? You were itching to talk about this.
I was, because I said I was not going to watch this show because I have no interest and I didn't care. But my wife, we didn't have anything to watch at the time, and it was just like, let's put on She-Hulk, and I was like, all right, I'll watch the first one.
Okay.
And so like now, once we started, she was invested, and so we watched every single one. And the first 2 episodes, I was just like, there's some things here and there I don't really care for, but it's fine. Like the talking to the camera doesn't really bother me. It bothers my wife more than it bothers me. She was just like, she just does it too much. But I'm like,
really? I don't think she does it enough.
Yeah, well, that's her opinion, not mine.
Okay.
I was just like, okay, whatever. But after episode 3, I was like, I need to talk about this show because this show is the worst thing that Marvel has made other than the Party Thor episode.
Really?
I think this show is hot fucking garbage. No offense to anyone who likes it, but I don't like it. I think Tatiana I'm going to butcher her name. Whoever She-Hulk is, her name, I'm sorry. I think she's great. I like She-Hulk. She's fine. I'm totally okay with that character, and I don't mind her talking to screen, any of that. I don't like that they made the villain, or maybe he's not a villain anymore, but Abomination, this like hippie commune dude with like followers, and he's all quippy like every other fucking character in this universe. I love Tim Roth and like Tarantino shit. Like Tim Roth is awesome. I wish he would do more stuff. But in this, I just don't care about that character, and maybe they'll make him interesting by the end. But I didn't like any of that.
I really like that because I think they did a good job of explaining he's not the bad guy. He thought he was going to be Captain America and destroy a monster, but now the monster is a love thing and he's a criminal. And I really like that aspect. And I think that could really
I can get behind
change you as a person of like, what the hell? I was just trying to do for country and this is how you treat me?
Yeah, but if he came off as genuinely remorseful and it was like he's been struggling with this for a long time and he seemed kind of down and was just like, I want to repent. Like, I'm okay with his arc of just him not being a villain anymore. It's like, I want to make a difference and be good and not like I can look like a monster but not be one. That's all fine. But him going like, oh, I've had pen pals and here's like 10 women who want to. It's like it's just silly to me.
Okay.
So that's what I don't like. His arc of like becoming a good person and like, you know, making amends and all that stuff, that's fine. Him writing haikus, I don't give a fuck about.
Okay.
And there's some of the lawyer stuff that just seems like silly, and it's like, have they established laws for this stuff? And like we're
feeling it out as they go.
But that whole, like, the Megan Thee Stallion joke that they said like 15 times,
I was so sick of hearing her name.
I can't, by the end of it, I was like, I can't ever hear Megan Thee Stallion's name again. And then it ended with a twerking video. It just screamed the Steve Buscemi thing of like, hello, fellow kids.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, wait, I thought we had established like 8 years ago that twerking isn't funny anymore.
No.
God, when She-Hulk twerking is something I never thought I'd see, and I groaned and rolled my eyes. And it just seemed like a bunch of old writers trying to be cool. Like, I was just waiting for like another fucking Fortnite reference or something like that.
And it's not. It's written by one woman.
Yeah.
And she's not like an elderly person.
No, it just seems like a show that's just like trying to appeal to something, and not to me.
See, I think Miss Marvel felt like that. That felt like old people writing young people. This just feels like cringy dialogue,
but I can't.
Situations.
And I had my fair share of problems with Miss Marvel, but in like the first 2 episodes of Miss Marvel, I actually really enjoyed, from what I remember. But like, yeah, it might have been older people writing for young people, and like that didn't really work. But at least it was young people doing it,
delivering the lines.
So when like it's an older person twerking and doing ridiculous stuff, it's like I didn't. It drove me nuts. It's like, this isn't the show I want.
See, I think that 3rd episode is like exactly the show I wanted. I just don't necessarily love that case. I just want people arguing superhero crimes.
Yes.
I love a shape-shifting elf pretending to be a celebrity to fool the biggest idiot in the world into bankruptcy. You know, I like that concept, even if it is like a weird Megan Thee Stallion thing that's done to death.
I'm okay with that, and I think we have to. It's like, yes, I would love to see, you know, every week it's Law and Order, but with superheroes, and there's what kind of silly, not necessarily even silly, what kind of crimes can be committed in a superhero world, and have there been laws that have been established? Because like we've seen, there was the Sokovia Accords, but ever since then we haven't established, like, you know, there's this new country of New Asgard, and here's this. It's like, is there a law against changing shape? Because I doubt there is, but you have to argue that there is, and then it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm calling on the Sorcerer Supreme. It's like, does anyone know who the fucking Sorcerer Supreme even is? Like, they didn't see, like, She-Hulk had to like get her to find Wong's Instagram to find out who he was. Like, Jesus fucking Christ, what is this? Like, what are we doing here, Ben? Everything about this show is making me mad, and it just seems so ridiculous. It's like, I thought I was going to hate the Madison character. By the end, I actually kind of liked her. In the 4th episode, she's like, my name's Madison, but it's the eye's not where you think, or whatever it was.
And funny side note, we picked up food today, and on the receipt, the person who printed out, her name was Madison, spelled that way, MADDISYNN.
There's no way that's...
And it's funny because when she said, and the Y's not where you expect it to be, I spelled it that way in my head, and like, I hope they actually do it. And, no, I love that character. That was fun.
And I can see her being so popular, she comes back in other stuff. Like, she's going to... she'll be a Skrull or something.
She needs to just be Wong's girlfriend or Wong's roommate, you know? Just...
like, those two together, I like.
But I am sick of Wong. I'm done with him.
Yeah, I don't care about Wong so much.
Get the fuck out of here, Wong.
Her calling him Wongers and like them like bonding over Sopranos and stuff. Like, that joke worked for me.
Yeah.
That stuff I liked. But just everything else I didn't care about. Like the whole like Tinder thing I thought was dumb. Like, I like the idea of like her going on dates as She-Hulk. Like, but the idea like dudes didn't want to fuck her when she was normal. Was absolutely ridiculous. Like, she's a gorgeous woman,
but that's Hollywood for you. Pretty Hollywood women play ugly women, and they're, you know, it's the she's all that sort of thing. And Rachel Lee Cook is hideous,
but I do like the idea of like, okay, she's obviously more popular as this other being, because like, how many chances are you gonna get to have sex with a giant green woman who can carry you like a little baby? And like, that idea is fine to me, but it's just like, I don't know, it just all seemed like, I feel like Tinder is so out of date now. It's like, obviously people still use it, but like, I don't know. It just, everything about the show seemed like it was doing bits from 5 to 10 years ago, and I just wish it focused more on law and made that more interesting. because we've only had those 2 cases so far in the 4 episodes that are like superhero.
Yeah.
And like the next case is her versus Titania for a copyright thing, which is also like such a dumb thing to make. Like,
well, like an influencer villain or the copyright thing?
The copyright thing. I 100% believe, because we can sue people for anything. Yeah. I believe that is a thing someone would do. Mm-hmm. But it's like, of all the things to take She-Hulk to court for, it'd be a trademark of a name she didn't create.
Sure.
And maybe it'll be great. I don't know, but there's nothing about the show so far that I'm like, wow, this was worth it. Like,
I'm really enjoying this. I wasn't sold after episode 1, but I'm liking it more and more, and I really liked episode 4. I do wish it was more focused on the crime and less of the cringe, but you just have to realize that this show is a comedy. This isn't, like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, it's a political drama, whatever. This is a straight comedy. It may not be as funny as you want it to be. It may actually be extremely cringy, but you have to take it for what it is, and it is more of a what's it like to be a woman, especially a woman superhero in this world, especially when it is a power based in anger and stuff. I think all that is really interesting.
I think I 100% agree with you. I think they could have taken it in interesting ways, but I didn't. And once again, this is just me, but I didn't necessarily want it to be a comedy, because this is a thing that many people have been talking about for a while now. It's just like
comedy,
everything is a comedy now. Like, it's one of the main reasons I didn't like Thor: Love and Thunder, because it's just like you took a character who was like badass and awesome, and you just made him a big fucking doofus because he's good at jokes.
Are more comedic.
Okay, and this is coming from someone who's never read a She-Hulk comic in his life, and
sure, she's been involved in more serious things, but like the fact that she could break the fourth wall and she has these ridiculous cases. She's always been a more comedic character.
Sure. Okay.
So you just gotta go into every episode going like, this is a comedy. This isn't an action adventure show. And I think you may come around to it a bit more.
Yeah.
I'd say the most offensive thing for me, besides like some of the things being a little cringy, is some of the special effects are really gross. Like, her face looks so weird as She-Hulk at times. She'll walk into a room and it looks like when you have a created character and they put it in a cutscene and it just doesn't quite look right. And when she's like swiping and she's making faces at everyone, it just looks uncanny valley. It's not 100% polished.
Yeah. Which has kind of been a problem for Marvel
for the past 5 years.
For a couple years now, is
they're cheating a lot. Like, it's good enough to get you by when you see Spider-Man swinging, because it's just a guy in a suit. It doesn't have to be a real person. But then when you have someone like a She-Hulk who has to emote and say words in a CG face, it needs to be worked on a little bit harder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's just not for me, and it's been making me angry, and I wanted to vent at you because no one else cares about what I have to.
Worst thing since Party Thor.
Yeah, and I hated Party Thor. I didn't think they could get any lower, but to me they have. I mean, maybe they can save it by the end, and my theory, and I'm looking forward to seeing Daredevil because I like Daredevil, but. I think Kevin Feige came out and was like, oh, this is the more fun Daredevil. And it's like, well, I don't want Daredevil to be fun.
I want Daredevil trying a case again. I want the whole episode, plaintiff and defendant, and they're just battling each other in court.
Great.
That's all I want.
Totally behind that 100%. But I don't want a happy-go-lucky. I want Daredevil who struggles with his faith and crime, and who's the dark and brooding one from the Daredevil series. I mean, he can still be lighthearted. Like the catching the brick joke is a great joke. Like Charlie Cox was fun in that show, but I don't want him to be the quip master with everybody else. I'm so fucking tired of this. And my one theory I wanted to talk to you about, and maybe you've heard something, maybe you haven't, but my theory is this is the show where they cameo Deadpool. It was like, oh, you can break the fourth wall too? Ha ha ha. And that'll be like the last bit.
Maybe. I don't know. I think if they're going to bring Deadpool in, it's going to be a big thing, and they're going to do it in a bigger way, in a bigger movie, not in a TV show that not everyone's watching. But when he does eventually appear, he'll be like, the real person who breaks the fourth wall is talking. You know, he'll definitely address it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they'll do it in this.
Or if not necessarily that Ryan Reynolds will, because like you could also do like, oh, you're green. I used to wear green once. It didn't really work out for me. You could do that kind of joke.
Yeah.
But if not necessarily him showing up, it'll be like, oh, my next case. Who is it? Wade Wilson.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it's like, I wonder who that could be. And then that'll be like, talk to the camera.
Yeah.
Some sort of Deadpool joke is my theory that we'll see at the end. But yeah, I mean, big fan of Jamil, I think is how you say her name, from The Good Place. But we haven't even seen her say a line in the show yet, I think.
I think she says, maybe, like, who are you? Or something like that.
But I don't know anything about Titania, so I don't want to speculate, but also I'm not excited to see her do shit. I don't know. I just don't like it. I want to. I just don't.
Two things I really liked. I like them revealing that Captain America isn't a virgin and he banged someone on a USO tour. Love
sure,
that.
That's fine. Yeah.
Chris Evans, of course he would. And I like the joke of the Hulk saying, I'm transformed. I'm literally a completely different person than who I was back then. And she looks at the camera and says, "Ha ha." I thought that was a very good joke. It's the first time they've really acknowledged that Edward Norton was the Hulk before. It's a good joke.
Yeah. Okay.
Fuck you, Steve.
It's
a good show. It's maybe middle or maybe a little above middle. But I would watch this over Falcon and the Winter Soldier, over Ms. Marvel, over What If.
I mean, honestly, I'd get rid of all of them. Because it just seems it's just a shame that I've spent so much time and energy into Marvel, and I can quit at any time.
Anytime. You tell your wife, you go on without me. I don't want to watch that show.
Yeah, I mean, I might, but just terms of like us talking about it, it's like. That's the whole thing. It's like you want to be part of the conversation. Sure. It's like I don't want to have to watch dog shit.
Steve, don't watch the shit.
It's just I see this and then I see some of the other shows you complain about and like you like this more than this and it drives me insane. that's my problem with you.
All right. Do you want to do Hot D or LotR?
Let's do LotR because Hot D is fresh in our mind. So
okay. So Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. Episode 3. What'd you think?
So on my limited look on the internet, I saw that this is the episode. It seemed like more people were getting on board because they're like, okay, now the story is progressing.
Yep.
And this is, I think, my least favorite of 3, to be honest.
Okay.
I loved the look of Numenor. It was very cool seeing this island nation of longer living men. Mm-hmm. So that was pretty impressive. And I like seeing, live action orcs. I thought they were cool.
Yeah.
And I like that you see that they're like building Mordor before it's all dark and gloomy and stuff. And they
what is it called? Like the
it's just called the Southlands.
Southlands. Okay.
Yeah. So there and one of my major issues with the show has been not major issues, but something I don't love is like some of the fantastical action sequences. And it's all been from the elves, which they would be the ones to do that stuff.
Like them swinging the chains and stuff when they're captive.
So whatever. I didn't like how much slow motion was in this.
Okay.
But I will say there is something to seeing a black guy run on chains and cut down dudes where I'm like, that's pretty fucking cool. that was pretty nice. But I hated the Galadriel
why she gotta be such a turd?
No, not even her being one, she didn't need to be that rude.
Yeah.
But two, this Chanel No. 5 commercial that was in the middle of it where she's like riding the horse and it's all slow motion and it was just like it just screamed like obsession, passion, Galadriel, Elven by Tolkien or whatever. It's just like it just seemed like a perfume ad in the middle of the show. I was like, this is so absurd. It's like it was trying to do this like beautiful moment of like, oh, she's found joy doing writing again, doing something she loves. I get it. It just artistically didn't work for me.
Okay.
But going on to the rest of the episode, I still enjoyed it, and I look forward to more episodes. And let me know what you think, and we'll break it down.
I like this episode probably the best so far because, like you said, we are actually getting into it. So even if these are my crappy characters I have to deal with, at least the story is more interesting now.
Sure.
But I still don't like any of these characters. Fuck Galadriel. She's like the worst protagonist. She's so obnoxious and like what I say goes. I know everything, and it's old. I don't like her enough to, like with a Walter White character, you even though he is a piece of shit, like you build to this guy knows what he's talking about. I don't really know much about her except that she has a dead brother, and it's like just play along sometimes. Sometimes you need to just play nice, bite your tongue, and get through a thing. And it's like, nah, I'm going to rock the boat and piss off the people, and that's going to get me home quicker. So fuck Galadriel, worst character of the show so far. I'm going to, every episode, I'm going to say, like, who's the worst character?
Okay. I think she's putting in a great performance, but I can see why people don't enjoy her on screen, just because I think most people just don't want to see someone who's just so single-mindedly like aggressive.
Yeah.
So I can get behind that idea, but I think she's doing a great job acting wise, and I have no ultimate problem with that. I liked the introduction of oh god, I'm spacing on his name. Isildur's dad. Christ. Cut around this so it makes it look like I actually know what I'm talking about. Hang on.
Well, just while you're looking that up, going back to Galadriel, I just hope in the next episode there's a time where the dude she's with is like, yo, chill the fuck out, let's get a drink somewhere and watch a show, and she could actually, laugh, relax, and just realize there's more to life than this singular vision. Because if this is her through the rest of the season, let Sauron win. Let him come back. Fuck them elves. They're boring. Okay, so what's the dude's name?
Yeah, Elendil. He's the sea captain who saves them.
Oh yeah.
And brings them in.
Okay.
And
like
he gets he's gifted the sword that cuts the ring from Sauron's hand. That's the a Narsil, as it's called. And we meet Isildur as a young man, which I didn't think we would meet him so soon. But I'm interested in those characters, and I like that Elendil's friend of elves and stuff, and him and Galadriel's bond will probably be one of the cornerstones of the series in terms of like, we're gonna team up to take Mount Doom, because that's where he dies, and that's where like a bunch of the characters we've met so far will die in the Battle of Mount Doom, which I assume will be
season 2 ender, right? Maybe.
No, I think that would be the end of the series.
Oh, and then, that's right.
Because that's kind of like once Sauron's defeated, that's pretty much the end of the Second Age, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So, anywho, so seeing that world was cool. I liked that when the elves tried to escape the trench, like they had archers posted up there. It wasn't just like, oh, the only thing keeping them in here was chains or whatever. Like I liked, it's like, no, we have contingency plans. Like we're not that dumb.
But I mean, we never see where they're really posted up, and if they are supposed to stay out of the sun, that's probably the shit job. Like, oh, you're on archer duty. Like, fuck, I only got this one blanket to cover me. Fuck.
I mean, they could hire outside, human contractors too. It's not, orcs did work with other people. And we get a tease of like, is it Sauron? Is it some other guy? And Chen Ardar, I think is the name. And we see this elfish looking guy who looks menacing, but it's kind of like blurry at the end. I just don't want the show to be like every episode kind of like doing a Lost thing. We're just like, here's a tease of something that's, oh, this is a red herring. Like I don't want every episode to be a red herring into the next episode where it's like, oh, gotcha, not who you think, but it's this other character who will lead to something else. But yeah, ultimately, and still enjoying it. I still love this world. I feel like I'm missing the
not hobbits,
the Harfoots. The Harfoot stuff.
They're nobbits.
I didn't love this stuff, but so much is just it was just kind of like a boring storyline for this episode. But I like the idea, because we've always seen the hobbits as these like loving people who just like, oh, we love gardening and you know, good meals and songs and cheer. Like they just seem like the perfectly happy beings where just like nothing, they like keep out of trouble. But like I like the idea of just like them being those people, but also like if you fall behind, you're getting left behind.
You're on your fucking own,
because
man.
like we don't have the tools to like defend ourselves against bigger creatures. So the idea of just like, we'll wait for you, but we're not going to wait for you is like both brutal and kind of like sweet. I don't know. I think I saw a lot of people have problems with that online. It's like, that's an absurd philosophy, but like I kind of dug it.
Yeah. Why would you let something drag you down in a harsh world when you're one of the smallest things there? Yeah, you absolutely would.
Sure. So I actually kind of like that aspect of it. And last thing, what'd you think of the googly-eyed warg?
The what?
The warg. The dog thing.
Dog thing?
That they...
Why is it googly eyed?
Because it just like had a silly face.
Oh.
It looked like googly eyes. You didn't notice it?
I didn't notice anything, but a CGI monster came in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it didn't affect me one way or another. I didn't notice a Google eye. I just knew... I've seen, I remember seeing them before.
It looked like a rabid poodle as opposed to, a wolf thing. But it didn't bother me in terms of, like, I thought it was kind of effectively scary and menacing. But I think a lot of people were, like, complaining, like, oh, that's what it looks like compared to, like, Peter Jackson. It's like, they're comparing everything to Peter Jackson's one. But it didn't bother me in terms of just...
Didn't even know there was a problem.
It was an interesting design choice, is all I'm saying. Okay.
And if you told me that's the exact... how they looked in Lord of the Rings, I would have believed you. It's like, I know that word. It's WORG, right? Or WARG.
Warg, yeah.
And like, yeah, I remember them. Oh, that's the thing? Okay, cool.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Do you have anything else to say about it?
No. You're probably going to be leading this section.
Do you have any questions that I may or may not be able to answer?
I probably did when I was watching. And of course, it's always one of those things like, oh yeah, I got to remember to ask Steve that. But that was a whole 2 days ago. I can't remember that.
I was sad that there was no Durin in this episode because the dwarves are my favorite part of the show, I think, so far. And Elrond, I like Elrond.
Yeah, it's better, but I still don't think it's all that great. Okay. I'm definitely liking Game of Thrones more and more as I see it, whereas Lord of the Rings still hasn't hooked me.
Fair enough.
So, but speaking of...
Hot D.
Let's talk about that hot D.
Ooh.
We got it.
This was the hottest D so far.
Yeah,
technically.
And at the beginning when it was saying like gore, nudity, violence, or whatever, it's just like bullshit. They haven't had like barely any nudity, and then it's like, no, this is all the nudity.
So this is my favorite episode of the season so far.
Yeah.
I think...
I'd probably say so.
Yeah, because the first 2 episodes, I was like, okay, I'm enjoying this. This is perfectly interesting. And then the third episode is where it was like, it lost me a little bit because we talked about it last week, where it's just like, it just seems like rich people complaining about being rich. And it's like, I didn't really care about who's getting the throne and whatever. But this, like, there was actually like character development and characters were interacting in ways that I didn't see coming, and it wasn't a dragon spectacle. You get like one shot of a dragon, and it was just like people in rooms talking, and it was all like way more interesting dialogue
than last week's rooms talking.
Yeah. So this episode worked for me in a lot of ways, and it's hooked me more back in the show. Since it lost me a little last week, it brought me back up. So
yeah, I enjoyed this, and at the beginning we were just talked about how last week it was gross marriages, and here we go again, and kind of saw it coming right from the get-go that they were going to try to do the the niece and uncle instead of the aunt and nephew. I was surprised how like willing she was.
Yeah, well, my whole thing was why?
Yeah, if like that was flirty before, it'd be one thing.
Yeah, if they had episodes where it was like a little bit of back and forth, it's like, yeah, there was some, what's the word I'm looking for? There was like a contemptuous relationship there because like they both want the throne, and maybe he's like a he's a ladies' man, and he's like a smooth talker, and he's a con man. He's like, oh, I'm gonna try and trick her into having sex with me so we can get married, and then I'll kill her or whatever. Like I can get behind all that, but it's just like
I'm just gonna walk you through
He's been gone for 4 years. They haven't hung out. The last time they saw each other, they were like, no, fuck you.
Yeah, I'm taking
and then
the egg back.
He comes back, and then it's just like they have one conversation, and he's like, oh, I guess you're 18 now or whatever the age she's supposed to be, and they're just like, okay, yeah. I mean, I guess it's just like dealing with all those suitors at the beginning and like, oh, they're all terrible. It just seems like a weird jump from like, oh, there's no good men to me going, I guess I'll fuck my uncle because he's kind of hot. Like it didn't make sense how they got together.
If there was a little more of a conversation where she's going like, I don't like any of these men. Man, it was so much easier back in the day when you could just marry your cousin. Ha ha. You know, you make a little joke. This isn't a pre-established thing. Something, but it's just kind of like, let me walk you through this orgy. Was that good enough for you?
Yeah, it just like, or if she got really drunk, maybe I could buy it. But
maybe.
It's like the only nice thing it seemed to ever happen between them was, oh, I got you this necklace.
Yeah.
That was it. Or if the necklace had a spell on it that made her something that like it takes time to develop and it's just been sitting on, like, and maybe that is a thing. I highly doubt. I don't think that's a thing because that'd be a little silly to me. But yeah, it's just like them getting together just kind of seemed out of left field. Yeah. But I think that those two as actors, I think their chemistry is really good in terms of the show. So like, I don't want to say I'm okay with it, but like.
It worked well enough.
It worked well on screen, but I just from a story standpoint, it's like, why the fuck would they get together? That's something that you would think would be like an end of the season thing, like jump and like they took a couple episodes to like get to know each other, crack jokes, like bond over like, oh, my dad's being a real dick. Yeah, my brother's kind of an asshole to you sometimes. It's like, oh, we're bonding over our shared annoyance of my dad. Well, you know what would really piss him off? If we had sex with each other.
Yeah, he's now married to my best friend, and you know, like they could complain about all of them and have some camaraderie behind that and joke about the throne and everything. And if you establish that they were much closer friends, but you don't get a whole lot, like he's kind of gone right from the first episode. They could have played it to be, I don't want to say acceptable, but at least more logical.
Yeah,
they just jump into it and it's just kind of like, the smell of this orgy really turning me on. I'm just gonna grab whoever is in front of me. Oh, you're my uncle? I don't give a shit. Let's do this.
Yeah, if it was supposed to be as like a sexual awakening thing for her, it's just like it's just I mean, I guess she hasn't really been out of the castle too much, but this is the first time she's seen like naked people or like felt urges. But it's not like they ever talked about like, oh, it'd be nice if like I could find a man because I've been really something or other lately, and it just seems like, nope, he showed me a fun night out, so I guess I'll fuck my uncle. It just
and he held back and she was going for it, you know, multiple times.
Yeah, that surprised me, and I'm glad he did because I didn't need to see them have sex with each other.
Yeah, and do you think it was him like coming to his senses or going like, nah, I'm gonna make her really want me, so when I try to get this marriage thing going, she'll seem willing.
Yeah, that's my theory, is that he's too much of he's a tactical con man, and I think he's playing the long game. It was just like, if I have sex with her now, then it's gonna ruin shit. But if I like tease her and I'm the bad boy, but I'm a bad boy with a heart of gold, it's like, I'll stop this before it gets too far. Oh, but I just can't resist you because clearly there's something here. Yeah. I think that's where it's going, or maybe they're just like two attractive people who wanted to have sex with each other.
Yeah, maybe
it's like, you know, our bloodline is full of uncles and cousins and sisters and brothers, and
it's just in our DNA.
In our DNA to do it. But what else happened the rest of the episode?
Otto is no longer the hand of the king.
Yeah, because he gave the news that they may have fooled around to.
But of all the people who are like conspiring against the king, you have the black dude with the blonde hair or the white hair, the king's brother. These people are actively like disrupting things, and then you have someone who's kind of doing more in the background, more sly. He's not so obvious about his schemes, and he's the one that gets called out. The people who are actually teaming up and marrying off and having wars and stuff like that, they're fine. They can still exist.
Yeah.
But my trusted hand.
My brother, I banish because he may have had sex with my daughter. My hand of the king, my best friend, I banish because he told me that they were fucking, and I assume it's all
probably a ploy.
It's probably a ploy for your grandson to take my throne, and then we just have poor Alicent just having to have sex with an old man, like being the trapped woman that her best friend is trying not to be. I like that juxtaposition of like those two kind of growing up in the same household but going vastly different paths, and
but then also going like, having a bunch of people pine after you while you can be a leader of a great house, that's not the worst thing in the world. And then we see her life and she's like, oh fuck, I gotta go fuck the king, I don't want to do this. And like,
it's not 4 a.m. I was in the middle of sleep.
Yeah, like justifying that everything she's going through is not as bad, but no, it's still pretty bad.
Yeah, just seeing that over the back shot of, and just seeing her like deadpan face of just like,
and then he'll look at her and
she like pretends to smile. Oh,
and
just
you just
awful.
see like his open sores on his back and
gross.
Yeah.
So yeah, for a show that's as gross it is, it's been for the most part enjoyable. Since she didn't have sex with her uncle, she decides to have sex with her guard, the Prince Charming looking dude.
Yeah, which obviously we all knew they were gonna hook up at some point.
And it was like, it was played so sweet and nice. That was just like, oh, this is
very playful.
Yeah, it was like, I like this. This is how it should be. And then it's like right at the very end, you just see in her eyes like, I wish you were my uncle. It's like, oh god damn it, just be happy with this dude.
Yeah, but he looked miserable because I feel for him because it's like, is this a trick? Is the princess so drunk that after we do this, she's gonna accuse me of something? And he felt very reluctant to do this thing, even though he has obviously some sort of feelings for her. But he looked like he was walking up to be hung or hanged.
Yeah, he was hung. No,
we saw it.
No, that's the funny thing. It's just like most men would be excited to like get with the princess, but I guess like it's your job on the line, it's your reputation, it's your house name.
You're the Secret Service, and you're trying to fuck the president's daughter.
Yeah,
it's like the president's daughter asked for it. She wanted me to.
Yeah, there's probably no good way for this to end.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens next week because we didn't really get to see them interact too much like the morning after. He just kind of showed back up. He's like, "Oh, princess, we got to go," and we don't see them really talk again. But I hope it isn't just like they hate each other. Like I would like it if they like kind of got together. Like not necessarily they like come out and like, oh, this is the man I'm choosing to marry. Yeah. It'd be nice if they just like have a thing for a little while, and then it's like, well, sorry, I got to marry my brother for political reasons. Then it's like, that's gross and fucked up. Or not brother, my uncle.
Well, but she's now betrothed to the black dude's son, right?
Well, that's what they're teasing
so
next
it's
week.
Like it'll be, I gotta bring my knight with me. He's my personal protection, and so they'll be banging behind their back. But I actually think, they gave her a potion of like, hey, just in case you're pregnant, take this Plan B. I think she's not gonna do it. She is gonna be pregnant. They're all gonna assume it's Damon's, but it's gonna be this guy's, and it'll be one of those like hard to maybe admit to. Sort of situation. I don't know, but I think she's gonna be pregnant.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anything else about the episode?
I guess the crab feeder guy is dead.
The crab feeder guy.
I guess he is not important.
He is dead.
Okay, so it makes more sense why they would hire an actor who has nothing on his IMDb because he doesn't want to
do anything.
Have any major impact later.
Yep. Nope.
But imagine being on a ship and just going, oh, let's go get on that island, and just seeing 2,000 men staked to the ground being eaten by crabs.
Gross.
Yeah. That's really
It sounds like a pretty cool visual. I would like to have seen.
Yeah. So anything else with Hot D?
Nope.
Got your fill?
I got my hot fill of Hot D.
So our main topic is a new release in theaters called Barbarian. An odd title for an odd movie. And did you see who wrote and directed this?
His last name is like Wegger or something? Cregger, yeah.
Yeah, Zach Cregger.
Zach Cregger,
do you know who that is?
I do not.
He's on The Whitest Kids You Know. He's the dude in Miss March. He's the friend. He's the other like lead besides
the tall, skinny one.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Isn't that weird?
interesting.
Well, like, why this of anything? He doesn't have a lot on his IMDb. I mean, he wrote some stuff, but
I mean, there does seem to be.
yeah, that's this guy.
Yeah. Huh.
Isn't that crazy?
I mean, there has been this influx of the past couple of years of like comedians going into the horror genre,
Sure.
and there is funny moments in this movie. So I get where that comedy comes from, but no, that's not who I expected that to be.
Yeah, not at all.
I just thought it was just like a new director, and this was like his first film or something like that.
You would think, and like everything that he's directed, it seems to be like sketches and things like that. And Miss March, like he directed Miss March.
Which I wouldn't say is a well-directed movie.
No, and that makes sense. You do a comedy; it doesn't have to like look as great as other things,
for sure.
and you know it's based off of their comedy styling, so it makes sense that he would direct it. But I really want to know the story behind this. Where did this come from? So basic synopsis: woman shows up to an Airbnb in the middle of the night. She finds out that a man is already in there, and he says he's checked it out. They try to work it out, and then there's a spooky door in the basement. And that's like the first 5 minutes, maybe first 10. 15.
Honestly, I think it's like first 25, 30
Really?
is when like that storyline ends.
I guess it does take it. They do a little bit of talking and just like, look, I'm not a creep.
Like she does wake up the next day and go do her job interview and
That's
then
true,
comes back.
yeah.
Like it's a good like 30 minutes plus in the movie before we get to the second sequence essentially.
And yeah, so definitely spoilers for this one. Before we get into like what actually happened, did you like this movie? Because normally you're not a horror guy, but you were pretty willing to go see this.
Yeah, I thought the trailer was effectively creepy and intriguing, and normally horror movies aren't my thing, but everything I saw for was like they were just like it's good and go in blind, don't look up anything. I was like, oh, when people say that, I'm interested. Like even if the horror movie looks like uninteresting, if they're just like no, it goes in a direction you won't see coming, like okay, well that's I'll go see that. But by the end of this movie, it was okay. There was parts of it I think were well done and effective and I liked, but ultimately it was just kind of more or less any other horror movie. And we'll get into that in a bit. What'd you think?
I enjoyed it. I gave this movie a B. I thought it was fun enough, and it's something we have seen before, but maybe in a different way. Like this sort of movie, you go in the basement, you find the creepy door, you find the room where people are being kidnapped. You think maybe Silence of the Lambs, or you think it's a cult and they're doing sacrifices. It goes in a way that I didn't expect it to go, but it's not so out of the ordinary that you couldn't figure it out. But I still enjoyed it. I just wish I had because we flashed back to what's his character's name is Frank. His name is Richard Brake. He's in a lot of like Rob Zombie movies. He's the guy who owns the house back in the 60s or the 50s. I don't know when it was.
Early 80s. The Reagan administration.
Oh, that's right, yeah. And we see it's his house, and he's stalking women, and he's bringing them down into the basement. But that's, boom, real quick, and it's done.
It's like a 5-minute sequence.
I wish we had a little bit more. I know we don't need to see any more because it's already implied there. So the big twist is that this man has been bringing women down and banging them and killing them, and then they've been giving birth, and then he's banging the children, and then the children are giving birth, and it's just like kind of doing that over and over again. And so now he has like a 7-foot tall incest baby monster old lady stalking these catacombs, this, which I wish we kind of knew a little bit more about why the tunnels were here as well. Where it was the house built on this old mine or anything. We just don't know. Did he dig them all himself? I wish we knew a little bit about that.
Yeah, because the movie doesn't really give you a lot of information, and I just wish there was a little bit more with him. All right, well, let's start from the beginning. I thought I don't know the actress name, but I thought she was great.
Her character's name is Tess. Her name is Georgina Campbell.
Georgina Campbell, I thought she was really good. Mm-hmm. And I liked the whole beginning sequence with her and Bill Skarsgård's character. And he's like, I can make you some tea. And she like doesn't touch it. She's like very skeptical of him the whole time, which like any woman should be.
And then they talk about it. And the way
he's like, yeah, go ahead.
The way he talks about it, it's like, I'm a bad guy and I know what to do and not to do as a bad guy, and to come off as a good guy, I'm going to show you I know these things and why this is so creepy. But then, lo and behold, I'm the bad guy. But that's not the case at all. It really...
Yeah, he was just kind of like an awkward dude, but I like that eventually, like, oh, I have seen the documentary that you're going to work with or whatever, and like building a quick little friendship, and they like have this moment, it's like, oh, are they going to hook up? But then they don't, and it's like, I thought all that worked really well, and they did it within the first 10 minutes of the movie, and I was like, okay, quality writing and storytelling right there. And then you have the like kind of creepy sequence where like the door mysteriously opens and she goes out and he's like making noise, and it's like, I don't know, what's all that about? And it's just like, oh no, I was just having a bad dream.
Yeah.
And then they wake up the next day, it's like, oh, nothing bad happened.
Yep.
Great. And then she goes to an interview and she comes back and she gets chased by a homeless man outside, and you're like, well, it's like her going outside and seeing the neighborhood she's in is so...
Because she arrives at night and it's completely dark. You can't see
there's
shit.
No like street lights.
And then the next day, everything is completely run down. This has been abandoned for years.
It looks like war-torn Poland. Yeah. And then there's just like this really beautiful house in the middle of it.
And even when she's talking at her interview, like, oh, where are you staying? It's like, oh, at Airbnb in this area. And they look at her like, what the fuck are you doing there? It's like saying, I have a tent in the middle of a garbage dump. And like, why the fuck are you staying in the middle of a garbage dump? And she gets
just good price.
Yeah, good pricing. Yeah, but she gets chased by a homeless guy, which was pretty scary. Just someone off in the way background, slowly running faster to you. But he was there to warn her. But
which I knew my going in because I heard like, oh, don't go in blind. You're not going to want to see the twist or whatever. I thought it was like, oh, that's going to be like Bill Skarsgård, because we don't see his face and he was off in I was like, oh, that's Bill Skarsgård like from the future or something. I think or like it was her. There's going to be some weird like time loop thing. Sure. It was like, I'm trying to warn you. It was like, hey girl, like don't go. Or that was going to be Justin Long from the future. So, like there was going to be some weird thing like that where they're like stuck in some murder loop or
you go into the tunnels and then you end up in the past or whatever.
Some weird shit like that. Yeah. But just some dude who like lived nearby
for 15 years and knows there's a scary homeless woman, or not home. Well, she has a home. Yeah. A scary inbred baby woman.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh yeah, she like stalks the streets. Like, why would she ever leave? She's a big naked lady.
Well, she has to get I assume it was to get food. That was one of the things. Like, all right, so she leaves at night. I assume to like get garbage and shit to like bring back, and because she needs to eat. Sure. Because I imagine she can't constantly be eating people, and there's no evidence that she does eat people.
Yeah, no.
And then she goes down into the Bill Skarsgård comes back that night, and she's like, "Oh, hey, I found this." Oh, we didn't even talk about it. Sorry. When she comes back from the job interview, she goes down to the basement to look for toilet paper, finds a rope that leads to a trap door into the basement, finds a room where there's like a disgusting mattress and a bucket.
Looks like a little snuff film area.
Yeah, where like rapes happen or murders happen or whatever, and there's a camera in there. She's like, oh, this is scary, and then finds another door that leads down, and oh no, she doesn't find that. I'm all over the place. I'm sorry. So she hears Bill Skarsgård outside because she's trapped in the basement, helps her get out, and she's like, we need to get the fuck out of here. Like, I found a murder room down there. We need to go. And he's like, not that I don't believe you, but let me just go check it out. Give me 30 seconds and we'll go. And then he goes, essentially disappears, and she's like, she can't find him. Then finds a secret door that leads even further down into like this underground railroad or mine or something, whatever it is. It might have been built by this creeper dude.
Could have been there for 100 years. And she hears him just screaming like help me.
Yeah. And I think this is all really effective, like just really tight, claustrophobic, pure darkness, only the light on the phone to guide you. And we get a pretty good scary moment where she finds him, and then the mother, as it's called in the movie, comes out and like murders him brutally. Like he
just runs from the shadow and bashes his head.
Yeah, just completely kills him. And then cut to Justin Long, which I gotta say, I love Justin Long. I'm glad to see him. He's great in this,
and he's good in almost everything.
Yeah,
he really brings something to every role.
Yeah, it's like he's not a leading man per se, but he's got some it factor.
He could play like gross dork, or he could play handsome hero. He could do a little bit of everything.
He's
very unassuming.
You know, you always hear the term everyman, and sort of I think Jason Bateman, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jason Bateman is always kind of like the quintessential everyman. Yeah. But I think Justin Long is like right in that wheelhouse.
Add it to the list of things we need to do.
List
of everyman.
And so we cut to him, and he's like having the time of his life, driving down like the California highway, and just like jamming out to a song in his convertible. And you find out that he's an actor who's been accused of raping his co-star.
Yeah.
And
they just got picked up for a pilot.
Yeah, and so like the pilot doesn't get canceled. He won't be a part of it. An article's coming out the next day with these allegations. So his career is ruined. He doesn't have a lot of money because he's got to pay the lawyers for a defamation case and an investigation or whatever into this whole thing. And so it's going to cost him a ton of money. So he needs to go to Michigan to the property that he owns, which turns out to be that house, to try and liquidate some assets. And while he's there, calls his buddy, says a slur of gay people on the phone. Like this,
the audience was not happy.
Oh yeah,
when he dropped this F slur.
Yeah,
everyone's just like ooh.
But the reason why Justin Long is my favorite character in this movie is because they did such a good job of like going back and forth with him the whole time, and I think like that was really quality writing where it's just like
piece of shit, but you feel sorry for him. Yeah, piece of shit, but you feel sorry for him.
Yeah, so when he first gets the call, you're just like, okay, and like the way he's reacting, it's like it could be bullshit, but you don't know. It's like when you get that call, it's like you must have done something, and just like seeing his life tank so quickly, you're like, oh, that really sucks if you find out this isn't true in this movie. And then he's like at home and he's talking to his mom and it's like, yeah, this fucking bitch. And it's like his mom's like, don't talk like that. It's like, well, he's ruining my life. She is a fucking bitch. And then he picks up the phone and says that F word. So that's kind of a real fucked up thing to say. And he goes out with his buddy and his buddy's like, hey man, tell me what happened. And then he like tells the story like, oh yeah, he probably did it. This, yeah.
Well, she kind of regretted it after. She had to take some convincing to do it, but she wanted to.
Real gross, sleazy stuff.
Yeah.
And then you see him become like, as he's down there, he's like trying to be this defender of her, and like he does a good job. It's like he's not like leaving her behind.
Yeah.
And it's like he's trying to be the hero. He's like, I've made mistakes. He has this sweet moment later in the film where he's like, maybe am I a good guy who did a bad thing, or am I a bad guy and I want to be good. It's like, so you're constantly like rooting for him and you're not rooting for him, and it's like it's so good to go back and forth. And then we'll get to the end where it's just like, of course, you piece of shit.
Yeah. So yeah, when he gets to the Airbnb, he sees like there's another car parked out front. There's suitcases left behind and a toothbrush left behind, and he's talking to the rental service people who take care of his property.
Like, yeah, no one's booked this place for weeks.
Yeah, and which I'll get to when we get to some other characters, but I have questions about this movie. So yeah, he goes downstairs. He finds the door as well. And he gets kind of spooked and chased by Mother and falls into a hole where our lead is, and she jumps down into the hole with him and tries to breastfeed him. Or no, picks him up, right?
Yeah. Well, she tries to feed him with a baby bottle, and he won't take it. Yeah. So then she picks him up and takes him out of the hole and tries to breastfeed him, which is...
And it's like
all just disgusting.
The only thing she has in her room is like some blankets and pillows on the ground, and then a TV that's playing like a How to Be a Mother.
When she threw him on the ground, I thought she was like going to try and change his diaper.
Oh,
I thought that's what that station was. It was like, oh, you know, because it would have been funny if like he was so scared he shit himself, and she's like, and then she like, oh, don't worry, and she has like this disgusting blood covered shirt from maybe Bill Skarsgård's character or something. I was like, don't worry, I got you, and he's just like even more grossed out.
Ooh,
oh, that could have been fun.
That would have been nasty.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she's like breastfeeding him and just trying to do the mama thing because that's all she knows. And then it turns out that the man that started all this is still alive and down in that basement.
Yeah, so the girl gets out of the hole because Mother didn't close the grate above. She makes a run for it. Mother hears it, so she leaves Justin Long behind. So Justin Long's like, oh, I can't go that way, so I'll keep going further down the tunnel. And so he finds this door, and he I don't think he wants to go in. And then he hears Mother coming because the girl was able to escape thanks to the homeless man pulling her out of the window at the last second. And
that shot after he gets her out, and she's just standing in the shadows, and then backs up. Really good use of shadows.
Yeah,
it's one of my favorite scary things of just you're looking down a hallway, there's something there, you can't quite make it out, and it moves slightly or does a little.
Usually it's just a shot of a dark hallway. And then it's just silence, and then you just see just something runs really, really fast. I like that it slowly crept in and then backed out.
Oh yeah.
So that was some of my favorite horror stuff in the movie. And so it backs away, and then Justin Long goes in that door. Before we get to that, cutting back to Tess, who's now she goes down the street. We find out that the homeless man's like, oh yeah, she's been living there for 40 years. You need to get out of here because if night falls, she's gonna come look for you. She gets to a gas station where she calls the police. The police show up and they just assume she's a crackhead or some homeless woman, and they're like, okay, we'll go to the house. And she's just
you don't live here, you don't have a key. Well,
we can't just really break into a house. And she's like, someone is probably getting murdered in there right now. I'm telling you, I was just held hostage here. And they're just like, oops. And they get a call sorry, lady, gotta go.
Get fucked, bitch. They are so infuriating.
That was part of the. It's that was one of the things. Is this the twist where the cops, the homeless man, everybody in this neighborhood is in on it? Because especially it doesn't seem like the mother is particularly stealthy per se.
Sure.
It's so if she's going out at night to gather food, it's that'd be the time to go, and the neighborhood's essentially abandoned, so there wouldn't be too many people seeing her. But someone would have to have noticed this 7-foot-tall naked woman running about, or be concerned about it.
If it's an abandoned area and she's going out to get food, there's nothing in that area, so she would have to venture out further and further into populated areas, because even if she's getting trash, there's not going to be fresh trash in an abandoned neighborhood, so she would have to go further and further out. And I had the same thought of, is everybody in on it? Because the Airbnb people, they say no one's rented this in forever. We don't know how long she's been in the hole, but it can't be more than a few days, I would say.
According to the Wikipedia, it was 2 weeks later.
Okay, so even 2 weeks, the Airbnb people wouldn't say no one's rented this place in a while. It would have been well, someone was here 2 weeks ago. We had a booking for that.
Maybe that's what it was, and it just seemed. But in the context of the movie, it just seemed it's been months or something before someone rented the place.
But it couldn't have been. And so I'm thinking, the Airbnb people, they're feeding this thing, because before I knew it was a crazy woman or whatever, I thought it's going to be a satanic cult. That's why you have a hidden door in your basement. Sure. You have some sort of cult.
I was hoping it would lead to hell or something.
And so it's the Airbnb is an evil Airbnb, and they're feeding this house for people. But that's not it. So are they just completely incompetent that they don't even know their bookings? Yeah, we saw that they double booked it, but it was through 2 different websites. But how could they? And their whole thing of, well, we clean right before the next person comes. And Justin Long makes the point, they could absolutely trash this fucking place, and you're not going to check on it until someone else rents it. So that all felt really fishy. And then the cops are so apathetic and don't do anything. It felt well, they have to be in on it as well. But they're not.
Because they even give her a dirty look as they're driving away. We got away with this one. Or no one will believe you. Or it's
and they're if you keep acting up, we're going to take you downtown. I would have picked up a rock and threw it through their windshield and said, take me downtown so I can talk to your fucking chief of police or something. Get enough ears on this story. And she just kind of lets him go away and goes back inside to save Justin Long. And that stuff was really infuriating because, one, it's either really poorly written characters or it's a bigger story that's not fleshed out.
Mm-hmm. So Justin Long goes into this other door, and we find the serial killer rapist there. He's super old now, and he's bedridden, and he's super sick. And we have all these tapes that are labeled redhead, Nancy, Asian girl Nancy,
on bike,
just
babysitter 1,
40 plus tapes. And you see Justin Long pops in whatever one's in the VHS and clearly is the rape tape.
Yeah.
And he turns, and like that was the part where it's just like, okay, maybe Justin Long didn't do it, because he turns to the guy, he's like, what the fuck is wrong with you, man?
Yeah.
Like, it just seemed like he was so disgusted by the thing that was happening.
But I think that's him looking at it and going, that's rape.
Right.
What I did was not.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
And I'm with you. But it was just one of those things where it's just like, you're not quite sure where he lies on the thing. And this is the only other part of the movie that really kind of bugged me, was like this. So was mother taking care of father?
I think so.
Because that's what it would have to be for him to stay alive. But like, so he had this gun in the basement with him this whole time, and he's been down there for God knows how long. And the second he gets the gun, he like blows his brains out. So all that was separating him from like wanting to kill himself was 2 feet.
Yeah.
And it's like he wasn't chained to the bed. He was just like so weak,
like,
and
his legs.
The guy from the body from Seven,
exactly.
Essentially.
Or maybe mother broke his knees and stuff to make sure he wouldn't move around, and they grew back kind of funky, and he can't walk. He can't even like pull himself forward. We don't know. He could have cancer for all we know.
Yeah. It just I didn't quite get it, what all that was about. But anyway, he gets the guy's gun, and it's just like the serial rapist just died so unceremoniously. I was just like, what? So like he wanted to die this whole time? Like I needed to know that story with him and this creature, because it seemed like the creature was like afraid to go in there, like because the guy said like there's things worse down there than her, which I guess is him talking about the rapist guy.
Yeah.
But the rapist guy was so incapable of like harm.
Yeah.
That is like, I was expecting something even scary, or like an army of these things.
Sure. Yeah.
Anything. But that
mother is the most like developed and most intelligent one, and the other ones are weird mongoloid people.
Yeah, and when Bill Skaar gets scarred early in the film said, "Oh, something bit me," I was like, "Oh, is she biting things?" And like they're turning into they're turning into like children kind of thing for her. And we saw multiple cages, so I was like, "Oh, she's keeping multiple children down here." None of that came to fruition.
No, I'm thinking that's where the rapist kept the babies until they got older. Like those are his pens. Everybody has died out at some point, and this is just the last one that has survived.
Sure. Okay.
And since he's so old and bedridden, he can't really do anything about it.
Right. But anyway, so he takes the guy's gun, and Justin Long goes out, and the girl is coming down to like rescue Justin Long because she thinks he's getting murdered. She at this point has pinned mother to the house. She's taken her car and
rammed him
and rammed mother into the car, and it looks like mother has died. So as she's going down, she's like, "Hey," and scares him, and he shoots her. And I thought she was going to be dead.
Yeah, I thought it was a headshot done.
Yeah. But she's alive, and he's like, "Oh God, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize it was you. We got to get you out of here. We're gonna go to the hospital." And they go out. Mother's gone. Yeah. And they're like, "All right, well, the car's ruined. What are we gonna do?" And she's like, "The homeless guy, he lives nearby. He told me where he lived. We're gonna go there and hide out there." So they get there, and the guy's just like, "Yeah, she's been living there for 40 years. So if it takes place in the 80s, and she was born in, let's say, the early 80s, so this is now 42 years later. So." Yeah. The sheets and stuff that he was buying was for mother's birth, I assume.
I would assume, yeah.
So it's like, but I've been living here for 15 years and just never come in here. And the second the sentence that was over, she
man's through the wall.
Oh yeah, bursts through the wall, rips the guy's arm off, and beats him to death with it.
Which for someone who is super tall but is in small hallways, probably doesn't get a lot of exercise, food isn't all that great. Pretty damn strong to be able to pull people's arms off.
Yeah, I was describing this to my wife, and she's like, "Why would
she didn't see it to you?"
No, she hates scary movies. I was like, "I'm gonna see this one by myself," and she would have been terrified this whole time. But she's like, "Yeah, why would incest make you like mutant strong?
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense."
It's like The Hills Have Eyes, where you're stuck in a chair and you have a hydrocephalic head that's so big you can't even lift your neck.
Yeah, and whatever. But I'll get over that. It's fine. The houses were so weak that she was able to burst through it. Fine.
Sure. Even though I think it was like concrete. That's what it looked like.
And I mean, I imagine you still have to be super strong to rip someone's arm off with just your hands and then beat them to death with it. So yeah, there's a water tower next to where this homeless guy lives, and they climb the water tower. Mother's coming after him. Justin Long's got the gun. Tess is like, shoot her,
and a big fucking idiot.
He just drops the gun. He's like, whoa! It's almost like those white people trying new products in like those black and white commercials. Like, have you ever been like this? And it's like no person would react that way.
Have you ever been in this situation where an incestuous monster is chasing you up a water tower, and then he looks at the camera and shrugs?
Yeah. And so he's like, oh my God, we're gonna die. And then he's just like, well, one of us can survive. And then he grabs Tess and is just like, I'm sorry, and throws her off. And another silly shot.
Yeah.
And he's like, go get your baby, and sacrifices Tess. To which Mother dives off like a swimmer to try and catch her.
And does a Batman thing.
It's only like 30 feet
three
tops?
stories maybe
30 feet tops, but she's able to like dive down, catch her. You don't see it, but Mother is able to Captain America shield grab her or something.
It's like a Batman thing, like catching Rachel.
Yeah, and it looks like Mother has died because now there's a pool of blood behind her head, and Justin Long comes down and it's like, okay, he is a piece of shit, and he goes and she's like, oh, Tess, you're alive. I'm so sorry. You were slipping, and I tried to stay, but like I couldn't grab you in time. I was like, oh, this guy's just full of shit. Yep, he definitely raped that girl. And then, of course, Mother's not dead. This is the classic horror movie thing. It's like, you think the creature's dead, but it's not. Nope. And then stabs his eyes with the long fingernails.
Yeah, with the thumbs, and then rips his head open.
And then splits his head in two.
Yeah. And then dies. Right?
And he's dead.
No, and then she dies, right? Mother.
Tess is still bleeding out, and Mother's kind of like, I'll take you home kind of thing. Like, baby, it'll be okay kind of thing. Like, she's being very gentle with Tess, and Tess just grabs the gun and like puts it up to her face. And meanwhile, like, she's holding it there, and Mother's just being so sweet the whole time. And my audience was just going like, bitch, shoot her in the face. Like, what are you waiting for? Because it's like a 20-second sequence where she's like not pulling the trigger. It's like, I would have pulled the trigger instantly. But anyway, so she kills Mother and then walks away, and that's the end of the movie. Like, I really liked what they did with Justin Long's character, and I really like small horror movies, and they did a lot with a little, but I just didn't like that it was just kind of like an incest creature monster, and it like did all the classic horror trope of just like, you think the creature's dead and it's actually still alive at the end, and I wanted it to be super out there. Like, I wanted them to go down that hole and be like, oh, this is where aliens are, or this is like the gateway to hell, or like they go down there, it turns out there's like a theme, it's like a Us or something, just like some weird out there thing that like you wouldn't think had anything to do with like this murder plot, but it was just like, oh, just a rape incest baby monster. And I also wasn't quite sure on the timeline, so like this creature is only 40 years old, but it's a product of it couldn't be more than it's like one rape in, or like obviously the
we
story
don't know how many women he had down there at any time.
Right. And I mean, he was an older man. I'd say he was like in his 50s,
and he could have been doing it for years.
Yeah, it's just like how many generations in do you get this creature? Because like it couldn't have been more than
but
3.
It's not like he's waiting for them to turn 30.
I know.
Before they give birth. So it's like I've seen that this child is 11 years old and has already gotten her period. Now I'm fucking that child, and that one has a baby. And then you do that, then you're getting one every 12 years or so. So you do that 4 times? I think that's probably enough.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm sure like there's maybe science with it.
There's
like,
definitely science.
Where it's like, you're probably not going to get this creature regardless of how many generations you do it. It just seemed like in a short amount of time, here's this awful super rape monster.
Yeah, it definitely could have been expanded on. And I do like your idea of you go down further and there's like an open trench where he's throwing the victims or he's throwing babies and they're all raising each other. And it is like a horrid pit of monsters, of really mangled, disgusting things, and that's your big, it's even crazier than you expected.
Sure. Or like, so that final battle doesn't take place above ground. Like they go back in the tunnel because they always find a reason to go back inside the house, and that's where they defeat it. And then after the place where they defeat it, they're in a room, and then like, oh, there's another door, and they open up that, and then you see like a bunch of these fucking things, and that's where it ends, or something. But the fact that it was just this one creature, I was like, oh, well, that's dumb.
It could have probably had some more explanation for these smaller things, but it is nice having a movie where you kind of only really know as much as the characters in the movie.
Yeah.
So, maybe there's more down there, maybe there's not, maybe there's a crazier big story, maybe there isn't.
It's made well enough that I would give it a B-. But the ending just ultimately altogether what it was, I wasn't a big fan of, but the direction I thought was really well done. The scares were effective. The jokes were effective. I think it was just a really well-crafted small film, and I like small horror films that do a lot with little. But in terms of just like where it ended up, it wasn't where I thought it was going to go, so I was kind of disappointed. Okay. And I don't think I'll ever watch it again.
No, probably not.
But
now, let me ask.
Yeah.
Why is it called Barbarian?
I went on IMDb to see if they had this information, because usually there's...
Yeah.
And the theory is that it's a combination of Airbnb and Barbary Street, where she stayed. So it's that combination.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Because if like the rapist is the barbarian, okay, that makes sense. But usually when I think of barbarian, I do think violent and primal, but they're soldiers in a way, or tribesmen. They're civilized to a point. Like Conan. Yeah, he's a barbarian because he could just take out this whole village, but he's not a grunting imbecile. Mm-hmm. He could have a conversation with you.
Sure.
I don't think of rapists as barbarians, so it's like that doesn't 100% work. None of the leads are barbarians. The monster's not a barbarian. So it's kind of an odd name, but I kind of like, you see the poster, you see the name, and then you say, what?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure it's mostly just a nothing title to just entice people to go in. It's like the title isn't what's important, the movie's what's important. So it's just a scary word, I guess. Oh. And I guess you could also, because essentially what I gathered from this movie is that men are awful.
Yeah.
And they don't believe women, and they will deny rape whether they did it or not.
They'll grab you off the street.
That's all the men in this movie are bad people, with the exception of the homeless guy.
Well, Bill Skarsgård isn't a bad guy.
No, but I mean he's a little weird. He's odd,
portrayed to be that there's something up.
Yeah. But he's not a bad guy by any means yet, or at least we don't know him well enough to find out if he is a bad guy, because he just got murdered really quickly. So. It could be that's the underline of the title is just like men are doing barbaric acts, even though they're civilized.
Yeah. Yeah, if this was called Barbaric, I think that's a better title.
Sure. Because I guess if you just call it like Mother, that's a spoiler, or you call it a rape baby.
Incest rape baby.
Incest rape baby definitely gives away the storyline.
You just call it IRB, and people are like, I don't know what that is. And then they find out, incest rape baby? Come on, I don't want to see a movie called Incest Rape Baby.
Also, the mother, played by a man, if you didn't know that.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. Although, it might have been a fun role for Gwendolyn Christie to be, because she's actually like 7 feet tall.
Yeah. Yeah, I figured it was, since it was a naked woman the entire time.
Yeah, it'd be a lot to put on a woman to be that gross, horrifying naked woman for hours on end.
Yeah.
I'm glad during the breastfeeding sequence, though, it wasn't like black goop or anything like seeping out. Like do that drag me to hell, like gross out vomit horror kind of stuff. It's like, oh god.
It definitely could have been grosser.
Yeah. Because it wasn't even, other than that, like even the like gore of like the arm ripping and the head blow, it wasn't like particularly gory.
Yeah, pretty minimal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't get fall into excess for any one thing.
So,
yeah, that was good.
I guess the most graphic thing was kind of Bill Skarsgård's head getting smashed, but it was like the camera was moving back so fast, it just kind of looked like a red blur as opposed to just like
you don't actually see eye sockets crushed in,
or bones like caving in or anything like that. But yeah, I mean it was better than it deserved to be, but not as good as it should have been for me. If that logic tracks.
Sure. I'll listen back on the edit and see if that made any sense. But I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
So B-, but it could have easily been a flat C if not for effective directing and Justin Long's performance.
Yeah. So what about next week? Next week, it's our big 1 year. 1 year of podcasting, or at least posting of podcasting. We actually kind of passed our year in July, but we didn't post anything until September. So 1 year anniversary. How do you feel? Let's save our thoughts. We'll save our thoughts. We're not 100% sure what we're going to do, but it'll be something special. It won't be a usual episode. We may talk about certain things that may have finished or whatever, like Primal. We'll, make a comment on. But maybe we'll have a fun little surprise. We'll do something special.
Maybe even a special guest. We've talked about Chris Evans a lot on the podcast.
That's true.
Wink, wink.
Yeah, and Robert Patrick, what are you doing here? It's because I remembered his name, and then he appears. Every time I go, what was the T-1000's name? He gets further and further away from me. He's like an opposite of It Follows.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll figure out something. If you want to get in contact with us, we are at WRPLpodcast@gmail.com. Also on Instagram and Twitter. Follow us there. As always, I'm Ben.
And I'm Steve.
Good night.